NVIDIA, and Republic of Gamers.
Welcome back here to the Heroes of the Storm Fall Championship. I'm Solid Jake, and we've got, well, Dreadnought Gillyweed playing musical chairs, and Grubby has evolved into J-How.
Hey, glad that I could, hopefully I can take some of Grubby's skill and apply that to my own Heroes game. I would not complain about that at all.
So that first series, pretty intense. Imperium put up a pretty good fight, I think.
Yeah, I think they put up a really good fight. I was impressed with a lot of their play. I think that they need to work a little bit with like Stronger specifically. It seemed like his positioning was rough at a lot of times and kind of got caught out for his team. But if they pull that back, I really do think that they're a pretty well-oiled machine, far better than I expected coming out of the region.
I agree, and I'm hoping that we'll see PBA put up the same amount of fight versus Fnatic in this match.
What a great segue. We will be moving in to Please Buff Arthas versus Fnatic from Europe. So this is going to be another big clash with these two teams duking it out in our second match of the day. Now, J-How, comparing these teams, who is your favorite?
This is kind of a tricky question for me. I love Fnatic right now. I love what they did. The question that I have is the first regional at DreamHack Valencia, they looked phenomenal, but they fell short against Dignitas, the #1 team in their region. Then when it came to Gamescom, regional #2, they looked like a far weaker team. And so it seems like the new patch, the new meta has kind of affected them. I still see them as the favorite, just not as heavy as a favorite as I probably would have a couple months ago. So that's kind of like, these are like my biggest question marks for this team in particular. And out of both group phases, how will Fnatic respond in this? And will they be going out as the #1 or the #2 seed? Or could we see an upset?
It's entirely possible. Well, let's take a look at our matchup here between PBA and Fnatic. Now, Fnatic, our first team, as you mentioned, did do very well in the first regional event in Europe, but at the second regional, it came down to a tiebreaker match with Misfits. And in a lot of ways, you can look at this as not only playing for themselves, but playing for Misfits, because the conclusion of that series was truly heartbreaking and very, very close.
Yeah, it was everybody was so tense. The players were tense, the play styles were tense. Everything about it was just who is going to win, who's going to pull out the W here. And in the end, it ended up being Fnatic, but a lot of people felt like there was any three teams out of Dignitas, Fnatic, and Misfits deserved to come here, and Fnatic ended up being that representative here. So I know that they very much feel that they are representing, obviously, just their region, but also some of the other teams, you know, after the knockout, because the whole region's very close.
Yes.
I remember at the Summer Global Championship, this team, PBA, they did something that no other team had done at that moment. I mean, they were one of the teams from what we would consider like the lower regions or the non, I guess, major regions, but they made it out. And they made it into the top 8. And so they have the potential to create another upset and to make it in that top 8 again. So I think anything is on the table in this matchup.
Well, let's talk about PBA, the opponents of Fnatic in this matchup. As you mentioned, they did have one of those big upsets when we looked at the last Global Finals.
Yeah, the big upset, they stole a boss right out of the nose from X Team, which was my favorite highlight of PBA. And they were a new team at Summer. Now they're coming in with that experience. They've had time to grow as a team, and I'm expecting great things from them. When I looked at the lineup, I got so excited that we were going to be commentating this match. But I think a lot of it will come down to momentum and emotions for these teams. When we talked to Smexy and the rest of Fnatic, he himself said that they're a momentum-based team, and PBA don't seem to be that for me. I don't see them tilt. They reverse swept their opponents in their regional to get to this point.
I mean, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Mentality-wise, that's got to be a huge for them. And I mean, Fnatic shows to be pretty strong when it comes to mentality as well, right? I mean, that secondary regional for them took forever to be able to get to the tiebreaker, and then they still ended up pulling the W when they thought their tournament life was almost over. It was, you know, like, keep your head in the game. Dignitas is still in the tournament, so we are still in the tournament. And so both of these guys, I do think, are very strong mentally, but I would agree that I think PBA is without a doubt less tilty, if you will.
I would say that too.
Is that a new adjective?
I made it up.
Tilty. We're going to use it from now on. Well, let's take a closer look at these two teams and see how they feel about this matchup.
Fnatic versus Please Buff Arthas is quite an interesting one.
I think we should have the upper hand in this matchup.
以我们队伍以往的经验跟技术，我相信这次比赛应该可以打爆他们。
Team Fnatic is a team that plays very much from their own strength. They're incredibly talented, hardworking, and have an aggressive play style.
技术和观念层面上应该是还没有到达 就是可以像世界赛这种。
PBA needs to maintain that calm under pressure. Fnatic have a lot of playmakers, and they're going to be trying to make those plays.
Getting out of the first group stage is really something we're expecting.
我觉得我们打起来应该会很轻松。够不够呛？
Incredible confidence on both sides. I mean, Fnatic, they're really expecting to make it into the next phase of this tournament, but yet PBA says they think it's going to be easy.
I mean, I think that's a bold statement to say that they think it'll be easy. They did end up getting the Gale Force upset and be able to make it out of the group stage, but I mean, to be blunt, it wasn't pretty. There was a lot of things given over on the side of Gale Force Esports, and I think it would be a naive mentality to walk into this tournament and think Europe's going to give it to us the same way. So I would like to, hopefully it's not as, you know, free low as they might think that it is.
Well, we will have to find out. The first map of this series will, in fact, be Infernal Shrines. Jayhow, guide us through its glory.
Well, I mean, it seems to be the map of the tournament right now so far. And, you know, the biggest thing that we're always going to find out is what happens around those Punishers, those Shrine phases. That's the biggest thing in this game, is that you get that objective, and then you can make so much happen. And, again, we tend to see a lot of team fights around this top Shrine. This is always one I love to focus on, because you can't avoid a team fight. You don't have the exits. If we go and we look at something like the middle Shrine, and you have a little bit more of avenues to kind of clear through. You have paths to be able to go out in all directions, and that's not necessarily the case in certain points. So it's one of the biggest things about this map in particular. And then again, we talk about the camps so much on this map and the value that they bring, the Shaman camps. When we look at those, we see the camps. There's 5 camps on this map, but the most important ones are these top ones on the left and right side. They have the Spalin Shamans because they're able to resurrect those minions that are with them, allow them to get so much value. So we'll see those heavily contested, possibly an invade. But those are 2 key points that I love about this map and the strategies that revolve around them for Infernal Shrines.
Well, you know what? We are actually ready to rock and roll with the draft here for the first game of this series. So let's just go straight on into it. Infernal Shrines for this series. Now, we saw a bit of Sonya throughout this tournament. You said you didn't expect to see a whole lot of it as we progress, but we're still in the early phase of the tournament, so heroes like Sonya, Kerrigan, still very prominent in the options.
I think Kerrigan is absolutely terrifying, and she will remain dominant throughout the whole tournament on this map. It's just, I do feel that Sonya has shown to struggle a bit more. I mean, obviously she is great on this map, but I do think when it comes to raw team fighting, as she kind of is drawn off again, it's hard to make her relevant. You have to worry about her. That wasn't the case so far that we've seen today and yesterday. She's had pretty good success, but you know, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe she is still the go-to melee assassin of this map.
I want to take you back to Gamescom. Fnatic, they had Kerrigan in their hands, but we don't have anybody on Fnatic that plays it well. We talked about, would it be Wubby, would it be Schwempy? It ended up being them, it ended up being Schwempy, and it did not look good. So normally that's something you allow your opponent to ban, and sometimes, I mean, it's not always first pick priority, but they're banning it out, just taking it completely off the board.
I think we could see a pretty early Sylvanas from Fnatic too. It's one of their core heroes. They have 2 people who can play her. She's great when you can get a Punisher, and Schwempy especially, you can see him making plays. He can be as aggressive as he wants, knowing that he has Haunting Wave. So I think we should watch out for her, even though she's kind of been in and out so far in a lot of games for other teams.
Illidan is off the table here for Please Buff Arthas, one of the better heroes in the game whenever you get on those bigger maps. So we'll see what Fnatic ends up doing. Some of the common bans like Zarya, Malfurion are untouched so far. And Fnatic right now, they go with the ETC. That is going to be their top priority. Over even the Murden, that's something that we see out of North America and Europe, not so much when it comes to the Asian regions. Korea, for instance, absolutely loves their Murden whenever they can get their hands on it. So we'll see what Please Buff Arthas decides to do.
We actually have a little bit of history to where Fnatic, during one game, actually ran a Murden ETC. It was a while back at one of the regionals in the fall regional, so I don't think it's off the board, but it's supports, right? They tend to not play right now. We have that meta of Malfurion. Obviously, he's not being as highly prioritized right now, but Brightwing and Ariel are both heroes that they will have their sights set on. But PBA, first 2 picks, man, I want to see what they've evolved into over the last few months.
I'm really curious to see where Zarya lands in this matchup. Zarya is a hero that has 4, globes she can just bob on out that does a fair bit of splash damage if she can soak up a lot of energy. And when you put your presence into the front line and you're really just trying to absorb as much damage as possible and to be a distraction, you can feed that energy rather quickly. So she has been frequently banned in situations in the earlier part of the draft. Will she see play here?
I do like the Murden pickup, obviously, with HGC. Focus on your Murden whenever you can. Zeratul this early is extremely different than what I expected them to be moving into. I mean, Zeratul is one that always pops up at every World Championship just because he is so threatening and his Void Prison is so powerful. But to see that early on this map seems surprising.
This is a comfort for Baphomet. Yes. Baphomet is the person who likes to start the engages, but an interesting point I noticed about Please Buff Arthas is they like having those big heroic abilities to maybe start a fight like Sunder, Void Prison, but they are not afraid to use them to counter engage. Let all of their opponents blow their cooldowns and then catch them after all the heroic abilities have been eliminated. So this might be a safety pick for them, as well as something that they have already shown before, so they're not giving anything away too much, although, like you said, it's just earlier on.
I would like to see if Fnatic is not going to pick up the Tychus in this rotation to make sure that they end up banning it out with how much of a front line that they have already. I think it does pair pretty well with Zarya. Tychus is a character with a relatively, at least a short range for a short period of time, depending on his level 1. And so it puts it into a position where you can gain a lot of value out of those shields, complementing her, complementing him. If they go with the follow for the wave clear, I really like that choice over Tychus as well.
I think that makes the Tychus ban even more powerful, right?
Agree.
You're really getting a nice lockdown on those ranged assassins. But where do you think the threat of Abathur lies? Is that going to be a viable option with the Zeratul, or not quite?
I would let it through. Yeah, on this map, I think it's something you could definitely feel comfortable letting through. Second ban, though, I mean, we got to look at supports now, because so far one hasn't been picked up. You're not really going to choke anybody out at this point. So it's a matter of what does Please Buff Arthas not want to deal with. We can already expect Tychus banned for Fnatic, but on the side of Please Buff Arthas, I really feel like they have to start targeting somebody like, I don't know, I mean, is Wubby going to be our Zarya player at this point? I mean, we've seen him kind of on these different roles, but he's normally on that extra frontline hero, so we got to start looking at that back line. But when you talk about Schwempy and Quacknix, they're almost interchangeable. They can each play so many different heroes.
Yeah, they used to not be like that too, but especially over Nexus games, they have been intermingling their hero pools a lot more, which I think makes them a lot more flexible than they had been. I also think Fnatic, in picking up Bala, might be telling already that they want to look at an Ariel pick for Smexy.
I would like to see Please Buff Arthas move into a Rhaegar, just because Violet right now is the only major solid clear for Fnatic right now. Zarya can kind of do her thing, get a little bit of poke out. She does okay, but Vala is really a large majority of the AoE, can steal a bit. And if they have the Rhaegar denied from Fnatic, it would really help their ability to just stop that shrine control pressure that Fnatic could build with their comp.
So with Malfurion being banned over Tychus, and of course Li Ming being banned on the side of PBA, Tychus seems like a pretty darn likely option here for Please Buff Arthas. Beyond that, we haven't seen a whole lot of Sergeant Hammer in this tournament. Do you think there's a case for her?
For Fnatic, yeah.
I think there's a case for her, but I don't think this is the map where I enjoy her as much. I don't want to say that it's a bad map, but I think that she has some more appealing ones, and I view her almost as like a Sylph. If you win the objective, she becomes very strong, but if you can't win it, then it's a pick that really, really is going to hurt your team. And so unless you have dominant shrine control, I'd like to see you avoid it. And so Ariel, Tychus for Please Buff Arthas, I think it's a really solid rotation for them.
I think it's perfect pickups. I mean, they get Ariel on their side, which brings so much value. Anybody gets caught out, you have that Crystal Aegis that's going to be there. But Tychus, I mean, the one thing about Tychus is that he's going to be able to burn through warriors, but at the same time, if you look at his grenade around the objective, we sometimes talk about obtaining that objective. If you get any bit of damage on some of those, you simply launch a grenade in there if you're Tychus, and you can snipe away. I mean, it's one of the things that we see done so well sometimes during these shrine phases. So, love those two pickups.
Fnatic do like Back to the Hammer, her specifically on this battleground. They have played her, but sitting, wondering what to get. The reason why I had said maybe they would want Ariel is generally I see Fnatic pairing her with Vala, Li Ming, or Lunara, and getting them very close together in a draft. So I have to wonder if they were wanting her, but another support Smexy loves to play, has been playing her a ton, is Brightwing, which is fine by me. And they have Zarya shields to help supplement where she can't keep up with the healing as well as she might like, but it's still picking Brightwing into Zeratul, so that'll be that contention.
Yeah, I think that was the main logic behind the Brightwing pickup. It is a big map, and she's always great with her global, but a lot of it comes down to Zeratul and Tychus. The polymorph is effective on both of them, but then Peekaboo and being able to deal with the Zeratul. We saw in the last matchup that it wasn't as effective, but I think Fnatic will be able to deal with it. Smexi's very good support, and I think he'll be all right. But now they have one last pick here, and it's probably going to be the backline hero. I don't know if they're going to move into...
I think we were looking at Hammer, Sylve, and possibly Greymane.
They go with
Tassadar.
That
the
is
unkillable comp.
so rare for Fnatic to have a Tassadar. Very rare.
Now, this is going to be quite difficult to burn through. You think about Brightwing with the sustained healing, double shields between Zarya and Tassadar, and then, of course, Ball is not quite easy to lock down. When you're thinking of the primary damage on the side of PBA being Zeratul, and I guess and Tychus, yes, for the tank blasting, they need more damage than this. What is the ideal option in your opinion? More melee to like just rush them down?
I don't even know if it's necessarily more melee. I definitely think they need more damage, but I think that damage comes in the form of 1, wave clear, and 2, shrine control, in the sense that, you know, they can get Zeratul. Zeratul's not going to stay on point the whole time. Murden can only survive so long. That leaves Tyke as kind of your next damage dealer. Could they be looking at a wombo with somebody like Jaina? I think there's a lot of options on the board. I don't know if they need like necessarily burst damage, but I definitely think that whether it's frontline or backline, they need something to bring a little bit of power.
I would Sylve. They end up going with the Sylvanas. Interesting choice.
Dread, I want to go back to what you talked about these heroes, that it's great if you're winning the shrine, but right now, looking at that composition, I don't necessarily see huge shrine control when it talks about winning the objective. I mean, they have the potential, but looking on the other side of Fnatic, it just looks so much stronger.
No, I agree. I think they have so much anti-Zeratul, which I think is what they're going to be depending on for Please Buff Arthas if they're going to be successful in the early half of the map. I think I would have liked to see something concentrate a bit more on team fighting on the side of Please Buff Arthas in that last pick, because it is unrealistic, I think, for them to obtain a lot of the shrines, and with the survivability and commitment Fnatic's put into their draft, personally, they have limited damage. They do have a lot of survivability, they do have a lot of CC, but that raw sustained DPS over a long period of time, or even just a burst to follow up onto the Zeratul, something to, you know, say, hey, we're going to bring the fight to you, we'll worry about the shrine after you're dead. And I don't feel like the Sylvanas was that pick.
You bring up a really good point, because Zeratul comes over there, you have 2 things to deal with him. You have Brightwing, who's got the polymorph, and then oftentimes what we see is heroes like Tracer, like Zeratul, that like to sneak around that back line. If you can land that polymorph, you power slide onto that hero, and then you've got to have a little bit of damage. I don't know if Vala individually can bring that, but that's going to be what they rely on. If you have 10 stacks around that, which is really easy around the shrine phase, that allows you to do that. If you opt to go Rain of Vengeance, I think there's good follow-up there. I think that's the #1 thing they're going to have to worry about.
A lot of communication needs to come in from Fnatic in between Brightwing and Tassadar to make sure they're rotating out the vision-giving abilities so that they're constantly watching for Zeratul. Also shielding from Zarya and Tassadar. If they can execute this, it's never dying for sure, but it's high execution.
I think that's what I'm looking out for the most, though, the shielding between Zarya and Tassadar, because it's critical for Wubby to get the max damage he can. If he can maintain his energy levels, their team has some decent DPS.
Right.
But without Zarya, you know, staying around 70% for the team fights, she really doesn't do a whole lot of damage.
I'm going to be that guy who suggests that if team fights do end up looking difficult in the early part of the game for Fnatic, I would like to see them move into an Archon, and I know that's
I was thinking about that too.
I actually would, just because they have built absurd survivability. Tassadar can do a very good amount of damage onto the backline to eat damage from his team, and Wubby there to support. I think it would be an option. I don't think it's a must-have. It kind of gauges the game's going, but I'll be honest, I don't look at Fnatic's comp and I go, this is outstanding, but I look at Please Buff Arthas and I go, I think it's even weaker in a lot of ways when it comes to the map.
And the wombo potential is, although it's not as explosive as some, with something like Graviton Surge and then Stage Dive and then Emerald Wind, it is a ton of disorientation. So a lot of displacing and giving your team the time to find 1 or 2 kills, you know, to open up the fight. I think there's some cool potential there. I like watching wombos. It's just all I want.
Oh, man. But I think a lot of this is going to come down to the sustained fight. It's got to for these 2 teams. So.
Alrighty, well, we are good to hop into game #1.
Here we are in game #1 between Fnatic and Please Buff Arthas. Like I said, I have been incredibly pumped for this series. out of both of the first group stages. Here is Fnatic. Jay, why don't you introduce them?
All right, we've got Breeze on ETC. Quacknick's going to be on Vala. Schwimpy coming in on Tassadar. Smex on Brightwing. And Wubby, the one to keep an eye on Zarya.
I just can't believe I'm seeing Schwimpy play Tassadar. That is pretty rare. In the red is Please Buff Arthas, the representative from Taiwan, with Alpha Luna playing Tychus, Baphomet on Zeratul, Goddog playing Sylvanas, Scroll on Muradin, and Zola rounding it out with Ariel.
Well, it looks like they are rotating into this top lane, looking to maybe get some early damage in with Sylvanas. Not necessarily going to happen this time around. Easily defended there by Brightwing and ETC. No cheese at the start of this game.
The setup from Fnatic was good too. They had Vala kind of rotating in between, making sure that if that push came in another lane, they had all of the bases covered, literally.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you often see these teams just kind of run to the middle and fight, but Sylvanas changes that dynamic pretty significantly. So getting straight to the laning phase, as you can see, Scroll just coming over here, get a little bit of dismount. Nice detainment strike. And the Stormbolt, they're just picking on Breeze right now. I'm sure he's going to react with the power slide there.
Breeze is going to pick on Scroll as well, with Quacknick's coming up to throw out the damage. One thing I want to talk about before we get too much into the action is Please Buff Arthas for me, and I'm sure you understand exactly what I'm talking about when I say they're like a slow burn hot sauce, right? They like to force their opponents where suddenly they're just like, why am I a level down? Or why am I 2 levels down? Because once PBA get ahead, they want to control all of the rotations and pick up and steal all of the mercenary camps, and they'll keep the pressure mounted the entire time. When we talk to Fnatic on the other side, they want to control that early game too, because they want to continue to be aggressive. They said they want to work on setting traps and being aggressive for the entire game. So I think the early game, Jay-How, is especially important to both of these teams.
Yeah, I mean, that was the biggest thing when we talked to Fnatic. They said they want to be aggressive, but sometimes when they get into these drawn-out fights, these long games, they actually have some of the longest average game time. So we'll see if they can put the pressure on. And now is the time, because both teams looking for level 4, but we are 10 seconds away from this first shrine spawning.
Brightwing staying in the top, able to phase shift in, gives a slight advantage to our European team, Fnatic. But they can come in. Breeze is spotted out. Scroll, PBH starting to step out, wanting to get the better positioning around the shrine as it starts to spawn.
Well, we saw a little bit of CC control between Muradin and Ariel, and this is one of those points where you can really put some pressure onto somebody, but sniping a few of those skeletal guardians away so far is Fnatic, but level 4 picked up. Look for Brightwing to go ahead and phase shift in.
Part of the reason why Ariel is so amazing on this battleground is not only her area damage, but there are so many choke points, like you talked about, where she can get aggressively detainment strikes. PBA jumped in, Polymorph was used on Scroll to let Fnatic get back on out, reset the fight, and push on in. They're very close in those skeletal defenders, but Fnatic are controlling it.
They're controlling it because Wubby is keeping his energy up right now. Look at those grenades that are going out, and you can see they're getting value out of Peekaboo. Of course, you have that cooldown on that ability, that trait for Brightwing. Being able to keep an eye on Zeratul is key, and right now the back and forth, this is very close, but Fnatic seems to be pulling it out.
He's always so fantastic at being able to zone, and he was doing just that. Now PBA need to get out and get out fast. With Fnatic going to pick up the Frozen Punisher, this will start to push into the bottom lane, and PBA need to get set up for the defense. They've got Zeratul who can go up and down between mid and top to make sure they're not losing out on the soak in those lanes.
Yeah, that's the big thing, as we now see the phase shift again. Just again, trying to keep eyes on the map to know where their advantage is. They take down the sidewall. They're looking to be very aggressive. Breeze posturing up. Again, we see a little bit of a power spike at level 4 for Vala going into that multi-shot build that is affected by those Hatred stacks.
There's the jump. Breeze was looking at it. He wanted it, but he was passive still, making sure they didn't over-aggress. And no kills yet for either side.
I mean, you can see the posturing, Gilly. I mean, they're looking to fight. They're looking for that one opportunity to just put their staple on the game very early on. You talked about looking for those early opportunities. You can see just the way that they're manipulating is very good.
And this is what I talk about. The setup. Minute Khazra come down, PBA are there, but they're unsure. They saw that Fnatic picked up the bottom Khazra, and now things are in disarray. They have to back off. This is time wasted for PBA.
It is. I mean, this is just one of those things that you see strategy. Sometimes we see the top tier teams, it's like no wasted energy, and sometimes you tend to have maybe it's nerves, it's their first game of the week. They're going up against the powerhouse in Fnatic, one of the top 3 teams in Europe, and obviously one of the favorites to come out of this group.
Normally that's how PBA is. They're fantastic. Okay, our Dragon Knight is about to go down in 2 seconds, so set up to get both of the giant camps at once. They are always in position to pick those up instantly. They see the Breeze just checking out to see if PBA are on their game in that regard, and they were, but just the fact that they went over and were aggressive and backed off, to me shows that they're feeling uncomfortable at this point, which is not a great sign already in the series.
I mean, it's not a great sign. I mean, we talked to Fnatic, and they said they see themselves as an aggressive team. We're waiting to see just how that works. As we see GodDog sneaking out of the back, but the detainment strike, phase shift in. Is it going to be enough to keep Breeze alive? No, he does go down for the first death of the game.
Our Polymorph just slightly too late to save him from Baphomet. The aggression starting to mount up. PBA maybe finding their footing a bit more, and this is what I'm talking about. Getting a little bit more each time ahead in experience. These guys know their rotations.
Well, they know their rotations. They haven't quite started this just yet. Wubby's sniffing them out on the other side of the vent there. Just, we know you're there. It's not going to happen. But Gilly, think about what this Shrine could mean. They have a little bit of an experience lead, but they also have Sylvanas on their side, which means that could snowball pretty quickly if they do manage to pick this up and hit 10 and then really push for them.
It can cause panic for Fnatic too, in knowing that they don't want to go up versus a Sylvanas plus the Punisher, because the snowball potential is very real, like you said. Both posturing around, PBA had the better setup initially, and that has afforded them a healthy lead in the Skeletal Defenders. They can back off, wait out some of these vision abilities, and then start to move back in.
Yeah, they just kind of go up, soak up a little bit, come back, and they're really trying to go. As we see the power slide onto GodDog, who does get the heal, and now we see a little bit of a split by Fnatic.
Baphomet has to go on out. Wubby is almost max energy, which means he's putting out the deeps for sure. GodDog pretty low, and he is the one with the Bestow Hope, which means they're not getting a lot of energy to be able to heal everybody back up.
Well, and you can see, speaking of healing, staying close-knit and close together. Brightwing getting value on the cooldown on that phase shift, also getting the heals up, the shields are there, and just like that, they've afforded themselves a second Punisher. Things looking really good so far around those shrines.
I'm concerned, based on how that Shrine went, for PBA and their ability to keep hope up for Ariel. She needs somebody to give her hope so that she can heal up her team, and normally you see somebody, like I mentioned for Fnatic, somebody like Vala, or maybe even Li Ming. PBA push Fnatic away from their structures, but this fort is pretty low. Fnatic are very healthy to re-engage.
They're posturing. I think they might hit 10 if they get this down. They're very close. It's going to be just short. There it goes. It's like right on the button. And you can see level 10. That's the reason why we see PBA backing away. You don't want to have any snap picks and then fall into a trap there. So backing away, so far so good for Fnatic.
Once PBA get heroic abilities, they'll have Void Prison and can start to try to make the plays. Maybe the Wombo with Wailing Arrow behind it, or trying to force fights like I said that they might, and use Void Prison in the back line to wait it out and then jump back in. But at this point, they have to play fairly passively until they can get those heroic abilities. But they're almost here. They see Smexy. Smexy dodges the detainment strike. Here comes GodDog. Oh, I really thought he was going to go for a body block.
I know, he got over there. He's like, maybe we'll think twice about this. Great plays nonetheless, as we see Wubby, as you talked about, keeping that energy up. It does look like he has completed his quest. He's had that up so long, and the fact that he's managed to just put so much pressure and so much damage out is really what we want to see out of Zarya players. It's kind of like a hit or miss. Like, either you play it well and you exceed beyond expectations, or you don't keep your energy up and then you run into problems.
He's gone for that standard build that enables him to keep the energy up too, because he got maximum charge. That quest is done so fast. He's working on Give Me 22, which means that once he finishes that quest, he'll have Shield Ally up more often and then hit me. So they're looking at a lot of damage, and they're throwing out a lot of damage too. Big Void Prison in the back!
The Void Prison is there, Tassadar's down, in comes the Dwarf Toss, the drill is out, the huge Wailing Arrow hits, and they're trying to follow up to get another kill, but you can see the blocks are there. Zarya with the cleanse onto Wubby, and they're going to be able to walk away, but they do lose Tassadar in the process.
One kill for PBA, maybe all they need to get their rotations going. Shrine is ready, and in getting a kill right before the Shrine, that's such a great feeling, no matter the battleground, taking somebody out just as an objective is about to spawn.
Yeah, that's huge. Tassadar is up, but they are building themselves a little bit of a league. You can see the phase shift coming in, keeping an eye on all of those heroes. That vision is so crucial for this team, and you can see, but Fnatic starting to come in as the power slide goes down, the polymorph as well.
Face melt to throw Scroll back, Dwarf tosses out of dodge, but there's going to be some time to wait. Instant Crystal Aegis, but the Graviton Surge is still there. Perfect force wall behind. Ariel eliminated from the fight.
Well, you can see the zoning out there as we see Zeratul coming in at the wrong moment, the power slide and the follow-up. And once again, Fnatic has taken control, and they're going to get another Punisher and start pushing this down. I mean, it seems like the early part of the Shrine phase, Gilly, looks so good. And then next thing you know, Fnatic just comes in and says, wait a minute, we got this. This is 3 for 3 so far.
Even if one support gets taken out, they've got 1.5 other ones. And Wubby max energy is dueling as another damage. He is throwing out so much of it with keeping his constant energy up. It's insanity.
Well, all eyes are on Sylvanas' pick because that was the last pick. And again, you have to win the objective to get that true value out of Sylvanas. So far, they haven't. The potential is still there. It's still very early on in the game, but they are now threatening to keep.
It's difficult that Fnatic were able to take out Zeratul as well, but he is back. Void Prison available. Baphomet constantly flanking off to the side, looking to see where you can throw that. A Shark circling, seeing if he can go in and catch one of those squishy heroes. But they have to wait until maybe they can bring down this Punisher too. The jump is there. Breeze instantly follows, and Crystal Aegis must be used. The fight breaking out. Alpha Luna polymorphed by the core. Drill being used, but Wubby is going toe-to-toe with it, just tanking the damage.
I've got shields for days, says Wubby. Bring it on, and you can see the follow-up potential. Breeze looked for that jump over by the Punisher. Again, there is no cleanse over on that other side, so that makes it far more dangerous to be caught in moments like that.
Yeah, you have to hope that it's going to be somebody like Sylvanas, who's already thrown Haunting Wave out. Fnatic stealing away the Khazra. Void Prison down, hits a few people, but maybe not quite how they wanted to set this up as PBA. Not finding people. There's a Graviton Surge in the back too, but PBA are, well, Fnatic were just using it to try to escape. They might get there. There's still the chases on, really going after Smexy.
Yeah, they are. He is barely alive. The face melt keeping him out of danger. Nicely done by Breeze, cutting their losses. They did lose Vala at the very beginning of that, but now with that pressure, you have Sylvanas, and this is why Sylvanas is so good. Locking down this fort, trying to make up some of that experience. You can see just how easy it is.
There, he did go down very far, so that fort with Sylvanas. Zeratul taking care of the minion push in the mid, but these buff Arthas are still down and out. They're level down. They're looking to get their 16 back before the next shrine. They need to keep clearing the wave. They don't like to be in lane. They'd rather be rotating around, stealing camps like this, but this might be too aggressive. Zeratul is not here, J-How.
He's not, but God Dog trying to make plays, and there's the power slide in by Breeze. The mosh pit hits too. Again, there is no cleanse. Nothing to come out to interrupt that as we see Ariel go down, who was caught in that. Tychus the second to fall, and that was a huge play by Breeze.
Quacknix felt entirely safe to strafe straight through that fight, pushing back some of the members of PBA and immense damage on everyone else caught in the mosh pit, and that has afforded Europeans team, I keep seeing the thing up at the top and thinking the names of Europe. Fnatic has level 16 now, and just in time for a shrine. This is a tough place to be in for PBA.
Yeah, especially the fact that they find themselves a talent down now. Gilly, let's go back to what I talked about during this map about how the camps, and sometimes teams like to invade. So far, we've seen an invasion by Fnatic, or at least trying to get a little bit greedy. They got punished. And we see PBA come over, they got punished. There is such huge contention over those camps, and you can see it could be very punishing.
Breeze and the rest of Fnatic have been on point, making Baphomet's life awful. They jump right back in. Wubby's got him in his sights, in his auto attacks as well. But Fnatic moving back, the drill has been used, and that's a nice way to start this shrine fight.
They are, but you can see Scroll coming in, Wubby in a lot of trouble, but there's the Graviton Surge, it's bringing in Luna. The Crystal Aegis has been used to keep him alive, but Scroll is caught in there. Breeze going in, trying to make plays again. The Force Wall locks in one. They get one kill down on the Tychus, and that was another huge play. Breeze is the playmaker as ETC right now.
They knew that the drill was down, and the choke point was a hard spot for PBA to try to engage through. And especially with Graviton Surge. It's a long cooldown, but there's so many choke points here that PBA have to be careful about where they're taking their engagements.
Well, we talked about Fnatic being aggressive, and they were very aggressive there. They had a talent tier lead. They could have gone up, started the shrine, and really put the pressure on. But they turned and they said, we have an opportunity. They managed to capitalize on that opportunity that could have been far worse. But you can see this is what Fnatic wants to establish, and they've done just that.
They want to be setting traps. They do it in the early game, but they felt like they were getting getting very passive in the late game. You said it. They have the longest average game time of any team at BlizzCon. They get passive in the late game, and they are trying their best to remedy that, and it starts here. This is their first test, is if they can do that at a global level.
Oh, it definitely starts here. They have captured every single Punisher. They've now taken down all forts, and that's just a matter of moments for this one to go down. But they got the bottom keep down. The middle one is halfway down, or at least some of the way down, and now the top one's being threatened on the side of PBA.
Wubby's picked up Pain is temporary, so stacking shields on shields. Jay, I heard you like shields, so I'm gonna give you some shields to go with their shields.
I'll take shields for days as we see GodDog trying to bait out that Punisher, bringing him to the middle. And this is one of the strategies that you see. Because that Punisher loves to attack heroes, it's one thing you can do is you can manipulate the movement, and they might be able to save a keep just on that play alone.
Wubby tanking the well. It barely survives, but not through the frost hit. No keep down there with that. So an excellent defense from PBA to bait down to the mid area.
Yeah, GodDog played that very well. You got to look for heroes that can really take that. He stepped up, baited it over. So very nicely done. PBA making the right plays. They're on even talent tiers, Gilly, but a level and a half away from 20 is Fnatic. You have to imagine that Please Buff Arthas is going to be looking to make plays.
They're looking for the trap again. Here comes Breeze with the phase shift from Brightwing. Lots of vision, and Crystal Aegis again used pretty early in the fight just to save Zola, but Draken Laser Drill as the response. ETC taken out. Graviton Surge for the disengage. Skrull not letting Wubby run away. Wubby just throwing out all the damage he can, making it maybe a 1-for-1. Smexy, Quackdix, and Shwimpy on full retreat. This is going terribly. A disastrous fight.
Think about what they did earlier. That fort is no longer there for them to fall back to. This is a long run for them. They're trying to do everything they can, but heavy impact. The cleanse is there. We see the shift out by Shwimpy. Should have another one. There it is. And that's going to afford him the time to get away. A miraculous escape by Fnatic. That could have been far worse, but the fact that they got punished for their aggression, they lost 2 heroes there.
That Zola could keep himself alive was everything for the fight, and he did so. And now PBA can wrest back control of the game, and that's exactly what they need to do. They've already lost a keep, but they want to start playing their own game, and it starts with this. See the split out, picking up 2 camps at once. That's a little taste of what PBA can do.
2 camps, another fort, and look at those experience bars, Gilly. There was a disparity between those just a moment ago. 2 kills, map control, camps being picked up. PBA just brought themselves back into the game.
They are back into the game, and they need to make sure that they are ready for this shrine, because the members of Fnatic that got taken out are coming back with full health bars, full mana bars, and PBA have been out on the battleground getting whatever they could, mercenary camps, forts. So take a breath, take a breather, don't get too aggressive for the shrine.
Well, we're going to see how it plays out. They haven't won a Punisher just yet. The fact that they just took down that middle fort means that if they do obtain this, if Please Buff Arthas does pick this, they have Sylvanas, an Arcane Punisher, but wait a minute, Baphomet getting caught out again. He's going to get to safety this time.
The struggle is real for Baphomet versus all this vision, versus Breeze on his tail as ETC. Shrine has been started. The detainment strike from Zola, and here comes Baphomet with the Void Prison.
Here it is, and you see the power slide directly onto him, and it looks like the drill is coming down, though. Gravity Surge not crapping anybody, and there goes the heavy impact with the Wailing Arrow follow. It looks like they're a little bit discoordinated.
A lot of heroic abilities have been used. Quackdix in the back with Strafe and Polymorph. Oh, Breeze stopped immediately from his mosh pit, but it won't matter. PBA is taking down Zarya. This is perfect. Crystal Aegis on GodDog. PBA are starting to win this fight. Breeze about to go down. The chase is there. Another kill for PBA.
2 are down, and you see Shwimpy using that, but GodDog trying to make the play. Skrull coming in, the heavy impact. Down goes another one. Smexy just barely survives for a moment, but those are huge plays being made by Please Buff Arthas. Level 20 has been picked up, and look at this. They're leaving 1 back for the Punisher and getting value out of Sylvanas. They're opening up a window of opportunity to win this game.
This is the comfort point for PBA. They have stopped all momentum for Fnatic, taken out 3 people, and are starting to work on the keep before Zeratul has even finished the shrine to get Arcane Punisher. You're very right, Jay-How. This might be Fnatic losing game 1 here.
They're posturing. We already saw a play out of GodDog to be able to bait that Punisher over. They have to make that play happen, and it has to happen right now. But the follow-up, there's the stun, and down goes Quackdix. That was a huge mistake by Fnatic.
Why was he there? Oh, PBA have lost their keep on top, but it doesn't matter. They've taken out Vala, a big point of damage for Fnatic.
All it took was one win. The power of Sylvanas rotating that over into that Punisher, and they have taken game number 1 off of the favorites of Fnatic.
What an impressive comeback. But Jayhow, I told you, this team is untiltable. They were so down. They lost the first keep early in the game, but our Taiwanese team just took out a game off of Fnatic.
That was impressive. I mean, the late game was theirs. They capitalized. Talk about Baphomet, who had all kinds of trouble between Brightwing and Tassadar. We talked about the vision control, but those last 2 Void Prisons changed the entire game.
That's how Zeratul works. You only need one good Void Prison to turn the game around.
The Untiltables versus the Tilt-A-Whirls. I mean, that is a crushing turnaround in favor of PBA. You talked about it, just that last moment where they dove on Ariel in the bottom lane to really turn things around. Crystal Aegis, Void Prison, to find that opportunity and blow up everyone on Fnatic, chasing one after another. And a few other, moments where they were able to capitalize. It was quite well done.
I really want to get Dread's perspective on this, because it seems like without a cleanse, Crystal Aegis is kind of like that go-to. It's like, all right, we can't really save you with a cleanse, so we'll just throw a Crystal Aegis on you. Now, we saw a lot of the follow-up there. We saw power slides. We saw different types of forms of crowd control. Is those moments where you have to kind of bait that out. I mean, they didn't have a lot, but it almost seems like they just went all in on one hero. Crystal Aegis was there, and they didn't have the follow-up.
That was a lot of what it came down to. Again, their comp didn't have damage for the most part. You have a strafe on a Valla, and once Valla is out of the equation, a lot of their damage is like, I mean, I wouldn't say that it's none, but it's definitely not enough to be able to confirm kills, especially into Ariel. If she gets a lot of stacks, has a valuable hope target, you are going to have a bad time. And a lot of what that entire game was Fnatic playing the European, we're going to win the map objective, we're going to play patient, and that worked for about the first 10-15 minutes of the game. But once you have to win the team fight, PBA goes, no, we're going to show you how it's done.
Why don't you take us through some of that?
All right, so we do have a replay here. The number 1 is, this is the first team fight. We're going to pause here. This is the first team fight where we finally see Fnatic feels they've got enough of advantage that, you know what, screw winning the map objective, we're going to take the fight to you. And this is exactly when PBA decides to turn the momentum. They go in, they look to try and get a kill onto the Ariel here, and she's going to be able to Crystal Aegis herself. So you'll see her there. You know, when you're surrounded by blue health bars, it's usually a bad place to be. But she ends up turning it around here in a matter of moments because she's going to be able to Crystal Aegis herself. And in that process, there's going to be the 3-man Void coming to isolate everyone. The problem is that right now we have an ETC who's not going to be able to get into the Void to protect himself, which means everyone's focus is going to go into him. Ariel's going to get a lot of value out of that Aegis because it's going to be procced with the Void. And then that is going to be the first kill here, as ETC and Breeze is going to be stuck out, and they're not done. Wubby then is going to turn on that on the Zarya. He's sacrificing himself. He realizes his team is dead. He's trying to buy time, but Fnatic actually doesn't fully commit to that. They almost lose one more target, but that is not it. They only end up getting 2 picks, but Fnatic, that was the first time they tried to be aggressive, and it failed. I'm going to be honest. The fact that Fnatic claims they're an aggressive team, I think, is a really bad mentality to have. If you think that is aggression, that was the most aggressive thing they did in the entire game. They lose one player, they'll 100% retreat from a team fight every single time. When it came to the map objective, they never took a team fight unless it was a blatant misposition where they were willing to burn a Zarya onto a target. And I mean, I'm sad to say that game shows that approach that they're so used to doesn't work at the international level.
That approach at that moment, they were 18.5 to barely 17. They had been playing the objective so well. Did they even need that moment? I felt like that was almost a mistake to try and be aggressive in that particular instance.
They're trying to change their style, right? That's what they told us. But unfortunately, I don't know if the world stage is the time to try to change your entire style. I'm serious.
Yeah, that's a good point.
What about that other big fight we had over the coffer in the middle of the map?
Yeah, we did end up having a huge battle up here on the upper half of the map, and this is what really turned the momentum and won the game for Please Buff Arthas. So we can see the skirmish, excuse me, I paused at the wrong time. It's going to be going down. There's going to be a Void with the isolation, and Zeratul is going to receive a reasonable amount of damage. Zarya will be able to split on the bottom half. We do see that 2 targets are going to be hit by her heroic, but it's not going to matter really at this point because the laser's going to be moving down, and suddenly Scrolls gets his eyes on. He's going to try and be aggressive. Laser's still wailing onto everybody, and the harass from the strafe is not touching anyone. Arya is keeping everyone alive, and then there you see them going in, confirming a kill here onto the target, and from that point it didn't matter. And look, I was brought it up before, the second you see one person die,
that is when Fnatic runs. They aren't willing to take a fight and go. I'd be willing to argue that in this entire tournament, you'll almost never see Fnatic all 5 die at one time. And I think that is a bad mentality to have. In a lot of situations, I get the idea of like Wubby, when he sacrificed, you're cutting off your losses.
Yeah.
But if you get in a fight, you all better commit. And if one of you commit and dies, suddenly everybody's backing out. You're never going to stand a chance. And I think Fnatic is too much of a team right now, at least. I think they can adjust, but they're too much. I'm waiting for my opponent to make a mistake, and then I'm going to do something. They don't make plays. They react to misplays. And that is not a winning mentality.
Well, we know Fnatic is a team that is all about momentum. We're going to have to see if they can get that momentum back as we go into game number 2. But first, we're going to have a quick commercial break.
The Heroes of the Storm Fall Championship is sponsored in part by Intel, T-Mobile, NVIDIA, and Republic of Gamers.
Heroes of the Storm. Play free and experience the new StarCraft-themed battlegrounds. Rated T for Teen.
The Master has been gone for so very long. I anticipate his return in every gust. It's maddening. Whatever is one to do to pass the time. I've gone and made a mess. Now, where was I? Oh, yes. Our unannounced visitors. Preparations must be made, for the Master will return to Karazhan soon.
The reviews are in, and the critics agree. Overwatch is a perfect 10.
Psst, what are you looking at?
It's time to pick a side.
Overwatch. Play it now on PC and console. Rated T for Teen.
The Heroes of the Storm Fall Championship is sponsored in part by Intel, T-Mobile, NVIDIA, and Republic of Gamers.
We are back here with Fnatic versus Please Buff Arthas with PBA leading 1-0. My name is Solid Jake. I've got Dreadnought, Gillyweed, and Jayhow here, and PBA just put up quite the upset.
They did, and it was on Infernal Shrines. And so to take a minute to appreciate, that is the second most played map for Fnatic on Infernal Shrines. They have a 60% win rate, and they've lost every time in the fall season to Dignitas on that map. But they have been able to put up games against, for instance, Misfits, which was the other team we've had reference to that maybe some considered should be here. So it is one of their better maps, right? It's not like PBA just caught them off guard. This is without a doubt one of the go-tos for Fnatic.
I want to interject real quick because you can say upset all you want. I don't see it as that. I don't see it as an upset at all. My biggest question mark in this group phase was Fnatic, and PBA is experienced and they're good. Like you can say upset, and a lot of people will look at it as an upset, but I don't see this as an upset at all.
So with Fnatic being a team that's all about momentum and losing to someone that they truly think they're better than, do you think they're a lost cause in your mind?
I don't think they're a lost cause. I don't think they're a lost cause at all. I could easily see them come back and go straight 2-0 for the rest of the series easily. But PBA is for real. I'm just putting that out there. They are for real, and I would not be surprised if they make a top 8 two global championships in a row.
Yeah, that way nobody thought that they deserved to win. Maybe that series versus Gale Force Esports, a lot of people said, oh, well, Gale Force through, there was the Void Prison. This time they deserved that win. Absolutely.
Completely agree. I think that's a really big thing to note when looking at their performance versus Gale Force. Even though obviously they did pull away the W, there were some, it would be hard to not call it a misplay, like colossal misplays on the side of Gale Force Esports in some situations. And the fact that that was a traditional game across the board in a lot of ways, and with PBA pulling out with the first W, I am afraid of Fnatic's future in the rest of this tournament if they aren't going to be able to pull away a win in this next game.
Well, let's actually take a closer look at the stats of these teams to see where they sit. So PBA just taking that win, their squad in general. Jayhao, who stands out to you the most as the most crucial member?
I think it hinges on Baphomet. I mean, we saw it last game. When he was able to make plays, their team really was able to capitalize on all of it. But we saw huge counters towards neutralizing a lot of what he was trying to do on Zeratul. But they have so many plays. I mean, I want to highlight Skrull. He went heavy impact at 16, and he made all the right dwarf toss to be able to get the stuns on key targets. He basically led the charge. The minute that VP went down, they got the kills. He was the one leading the charge after that, and his team followed, and they looked amazing.
Do you think it's difficult being both the shot caller and making those plays, as the captain with the Void Prison going down in those moments? Is it difficult to control the battle, or do you think it's essential?
I think as long as he is the one who says we fight now and sets up the start. If it's something else where he's maybe getting caught, like the times when he was caught by ETC and was having to run away, anytime you are trying to run away and get yourself out while at the same time trying to shot call your teammates, I'm going to guess that's hard.
Yeah,
that is. It's one of those situations where if you are the one dictating the fight when you're winning it, it's so easy to call. But suddenly when you're the main focus target and you have to back out, you're like hitting back, then you're throwing your camera on like what should be happening, and that is a difficult situation.
Well, their opponents, Fnatic, we just saw them have a beautiful start to the game. And this roster, well, they're very powerful, very flexible. Going in with that early pick on the Zarya worked relatively well until we saw those good counter engages.
This is a really young team, too. Some young members. Makes them, of course, vulnerable to tilt a little bit. We've talked about momentum and how important it will be that they don't get shaken here. And that comes down to Quacknix, their shot caller. When we asked who it was who kept them from falling apart after they lost to Team Dignitas, it was Quack's job, and he said, sometimes I do tilt, but for the most part, Trumpy said he was the most positive member of the team, and that is his job as the captain.
Yeah. I think when we look at their team, Breeze and Smexy, I mean, Breeze being their warrior, Smexy being their support, and he has come leaps and bounds, has Smexy as a support role. Breeze has been a constant rock for that team making plays. It's up to the other 3 members to make things happen for this team, and that game number 1, I don't think they did.
I completely agree, and actually a shout out to, I think on Fnatic, the best performer in the last game was Smexy. He had a couple of really good plays for his team, a great ice block into a blink heal to be able to separate himself without dying. Like, he did a lot of really good things. Even was the only reason for one of the few fights Fnatic actually won was his legendary pre-cleanse on the Murd and Stormbolt or from ETC's Mosh Pit to allow it to keep channeling. So he, I think, it doesn't need to do anything differently. He really did perform very, very well. I think a lot of it comes down to, number 1, I think their drafts, and then number 2, I think that they really just having synergy within each other, because it didn't feel like we saw that in the last game. And also, aggression. I want that aggression. I can't help but push that mentality more and more, because we see that from them, and it shows in their stats in every way, shape, and form. They really need to make sure they get it.
Unfortunately for Fnatic in this event, they don't have that beard Schwimpy had to shave off mid-tournament and get the good luck.
That's true.
So we'll have to see if they can turn on that aggression. But because we will be going to Sky Temple for our next map, Jay Howe, take it away.
You know, this is actually something, I'm going to take a different approach to this map tool right now because I just want to go ahead and take a look at one of the biggest threats on this map, and it's called space. And that's something that Zeratul works very well in. You see these huge areas around this middle temple. We see a lot of team fights happen over these temples. Eventually, that's what takes place, and Zeratul is allowed to make so many plays. And we talk about those temples in particular as we look at all three of them at the top, middle, and bottom of the map. At the beginning of the game, the first temple phase is going to be the top and middle. And then once that second one comes into play, it's going to be the bottom temple. So that's kind of the biggest thing when we look at that. And the thing that we see a lot of is going to be the teams that capitalize on the camps. As we look at the camps on this map, we have different camps that are available. You have your Bruisers, your Siege on both sides, and then of course there's the ever playful throw pit of the boss there. But during that second temple phase, we'll see high priority on these top camps. It's up to a matter of rotations. There are certain teams that play the objective and play rotations on this map so well. It starts with the camps, it plays around the boss, but it's mostly around those temples. So we'll see who can control those the best, because those are key areas to victory for both teams.
Gilly, when you look at the boss pit, is the first word you think of playful?
No.
Of course it is.
I think of throw. The throw pit, which should come in later on.
That is one of the, that's my most, like if you look at boss plays on different maps, I hear Dread talk about it all the time. The only way they can lose this game is if they go for that boss. And then you see that team go for that boss, and you're like, why are you playing there? Like, you shouldn't be playing there. You're in a place you shouldn't be, and you get punished for it sometimes. So keep an eye out for that. That's where a lot of fun happens.
Fair enough. Well, let's find out what heroes these teams will be playing as we go into the draft for game number 2. Now, Sky Temple, we do see a lot of global presence come into play.
Yeah, there's a bit of global presence. It used to be a lot more prominent than it is recently, and I think we'll still see it, but I wouldn't put it as high prioritization as those on, for instance, like Towers of Doom. Please buff Arthas. We'll go for the removal of the Illidan. I don't think that's too surprising. We've talked about the strength of this hero everywhere. It is interesting to see it as a first ban. I think that means that Please buff Arthas has a very high priority that they want to see, or they're not able to play the hero.
Do you think that we saw an early Zeratul pick last game?
Yeah.
Early, and we never really see Zeratul that early. Given that this is Sky Temple, what we would probably deem as Zeratul's best map, do you think it's potential that we might see it before the second ban phase again?
They banned it out, so yeah. The banning of Zeratul, I can already say that seeing that adjustment coming out from Fnatic makes me very fearful of them moving forward in this game. Typically, if you are confident in yourself being the better team, even if your opponent pulls out something like the Zeratul, you kind of remove it as the cheese, but you wouldn't do it, I guess, that early. Zeratul is a hero that a lot of people are like, yeah, he's really good with it, but we can deal with it, you know? You can deal with the Zeratul, and so that ban, those adjustments usually don't work out.
When he doesn't get Zeratul, Baphomet has another hero he likes to start fights with, and that is Thrall. And when we look at Fnatic also sometimes will pick up Thrall for Wubby. So I think that if seeing these bans on melee assassins is making either of them scared that they're not going to get this pivotal hero for them. But then again, Thrall has not been picked as much. So we're seeing PBA get Malfurion first.
Well, for what it's worth, Thrall is Wubby's most played hero this year by far. I don't know if it's going to be something that we'll see coming out from him. We've seen more of these kind of double warrior setups for them. It's a matter of priority right now, and Malfurion being the first pick by PBA, that's something that we haven't really had an opportunity to see too often, but it's a great pickup nonetheless.
It feels like a lot of the instances where we would see Thrall, Chen has been making his way in there quite a bit, but Fnatic opening up with
there it is. This is it.
Possible.
They run this. They like to run this with a Brightwing to be able to keep that global. They have the stage dive potentially there, or Mosh Pit. The last time they ran this was not too long ago, and they had Brightwing, Valla, and Sylvanas. But they run this double warrior comp specifically is Murd and ETC, the same as we talked about in Infernal Shrines. For some reason, this composition, they will run these two together.
Give them the axe. There you go. The 3 warriors I've seen Scroll play are Murden, ETC, and Tyrael. I wonder if they are so scared that they will get stopped from a warrior they feel comfortable on, that they pick him up here. Unfortunately, I've seen Scroll when he plays Tyrael, take a lot of damage since he is squishier, so I'll have to be cognizant of that in the game.
The problem I have with committing to this so early is that you can't ban out Tychus at this point. You have to imagine that PBA has their eyes firmly set on Tychus. I don't think it's a guarantee, but I'd say it's a pretty good start when you look across the board and you see Murd and ETC as the first 2 picks.
I'm really surprised to see that be a Li Ming pick into a double warrior. It's one of her better maps. I understand the prioritization, but to put that into a double warrior pick so highly when you're limited already on your warrior selection, you brought up the difficulties when their hero pools, but then it either forces them into a position to play one that they aren't comfortable on. They do go with the Tyrael, the great call there, but now I feel like Tychus into that double tank, it is not an option anymore. It just seems crazy to me to pick the Li Ming over a Tychus into the double warrior there.
Especially because what you're alluding to is that it's harder to get resets.
Yes.
Because the health pools are higher of your opponents.
Yeah, and like not only that, they're obviously going to want to be in your face. The distance to a majority of your damage coming from your orb is going to be non-existent, and also Tychus pairs well with that Tyrael. It's not necessarily what I would consider to be a legendary pickup, but Tychus thrives when he isn't worried about dying on his own. When if you have the Sanctification as a backup, I would put that as probably one of Tyrael's better pairings with with an assassin.
This very well might be a comfort issue. I don't know how much God Dog and Alpha Luna have been playing Tychus. I mean, realistically, it does seem like the clear-cut option. And Li Ming, although she can have a lot of poke, you know, sometimes it just comes down to style. But Tyrael, as predicted, does get locked in here. And when we look at the bans, Tassadar has been removed.
Okay, they still didn't ban Tychus.
They're going to pick it up.
Tassadar makes sense. Yeah, they might be picking it up, but at the same time, I feel like Vala is going to be their top choice. And if they don't get Vala, I think PBA right now should be banning Vala. This is kind of like their #1. Right now, it's kind of like the top tier meta, and it's something Fnatic really likes to play. So this is something that they could definitely ban out, but
maybe Brightwing.
I actually would like to see them do differently just because they have the Tyrael on their team. Yes, I like the removal of Tychus. Vala's health pool is so limited that I would rather you try and strafe to my sanctification all day. I want a dive comp. I want as squishy of a backline you can possibly have, and Tychus is not that guy.
Does this bring back the terrors of Greymane?
It could be. I think the double reset composition is reasonable. Malfurion doesn't necessarily thrive in that environment, but he definitely doesn't hinder it either. So I think it is reasonable for them to go that. I just want to make sure that Please Buff Arthas really focuses on getting another aggressive melee in some way, shape, or form to complement. The Falstad is a solid response to what we see coming out with that Tyrael pickup.
A global to help Fnatic,
and then
potentially
disengage.
2 globals, and disengage too from an idea of a dive comp like you had said, or hoped for from PBA. One more pick from Fnatic. Still don't have Smexy's hero or probably Schwimpy's either.
I think we're going to be looking at Sylvanas or Vala, yeah. And there's the Vala pickup. They really prioritize Vala, and that leaves basically the support open. Brightwing has not been picked up. I'm not sure if the results have been quite what they wanted. Smexy, I think, can literally play any support that's in their current meta, so I don't worry about that at all. Our focus right now has got to be turned to PBA. I mean, they need to be able to help possibly secure that front line. You talked about the Thrall potential. He's still on the board. I think that could help at least solidify some of that front line. We talked about Sanctification. That gives them a true type of engagement. It gives them some strength on that front line. So there's a couple of options, I think, still left for them.
What we haven't seen out of Baphomet so much is, can he play Olarak? And although Olarak isn't necessarily the same kind of hard engage as a Thrall, it could pair nicely with some of the combos they have available.
Their drafts were on the current patch too, which is interesting. That's not the same for a lot of the teams here. And one thing I thought was super strange was they're still prioritizing Zagara a lot, but that was happening on both sides. They're also banning a lot, so I think it might be more of a Taiwanese thing.
Or there it is.
But she's good on this map.
Not too shabby.
They need a hero that will 100% force the fight. That is like the thing I'm most concerned of. And you could be like, well, Ma is going to be that tool. Yeah, if you flank with it and somehow hit a 3-man, and that is a very unrealistic thing to be doing at this stage.
Especially in Sky.
Tyrael is not necessarily the greatest. Malf is without a doubt probably their best go-to in that situation. But I wouldn't bank on Malfurion Root to be, that's my hard engage for a team. This last pick, I'm very concerned for PBA. I really think that they need to make sure that, I don't know exactly what I think it is, but it has to be something that goes, all right, that's the thing that kills. That's what's going to be starting our fight, and that could be a Chen, it could be any kind of warrior, or just hard engage.
Well, we saw it a little bit in the last game, but PBA, like I said, like using heroic abilities defensively a lot. They want to wait until someone tries to jump on them, and then they'll throw out things like the Devouring Maw.
There it is.
Last thing's going to be Chen.
So do you think Wandering Keg is an absolute
yes.
essential?
I don't think it's an absolute must. I think it is the safer bet. If you don't go with Wandering Keg, I think a lot of what you're going to see is them trying to get a fight, Sanctification going down. They get a little bit of damage. You're going to see Gus come out from Falstad, and then they're like, well, that was our fun team fight, and you probably don't have the rest of the fight available to survive.
Jay, how do you think the lane matchups look for the early game when you consider that Chen and Zagara, two of the best solo laners in the game, are going to be on the map here?
I'm not as worried about it just because they've got Falstad, who makes up for any deficiencies just by the fact that he's got a global. Same for Brightwing.
I think that's a really big mistake to pick the Brightwing in this situation. The global is something that they want in their hands, but again, I think a lot of Fnatic's team fights are going to be a big win as long as they don't get hard engaged on, and I personally think Brightwing was one of the weakest defensive tools in that situation. Any other counter momentum support I think would be far more effective, and that might be something that bites them in the butt in this game.
I think it's Emerald Wind. Has to be Emerald Wind for another disengage tool.
I think that might be their plan, but then it risks Brightwing's positioning so much that you're either overcommitting with the target that you're teleporting into, or you're overcommitting with her in the first place, and they have Sanctification to counter it. I think banking on Divine Shield or an Aegis, something to just be like, hey, you know, take a minute. We're going to choose the fight we want. Brightwing's not that girl.
Dread, I want to go back to what you said about being able to, the European style of play and the objectives and stuff like that, being able to play lanes. That's generally what globals give you, but when you get globals, you give up a little bit of something else. And in this case, kind of like that burst heal, some of the potential that you could get from other supports in that. When you already have Falstad, you go into that double global knowing that some of these team fights will struggle. Falstad, you know, he doesn't necessarily excel as much in team fights as he did a few months ago since a few recent nerfs, but I wholeheartedly agree with you. I don't mind the pick, but I think that there were better options definitely available.
I don't think it's like, well, you picked Brightwing, you lost the game, but I do think it's, you know, we know what we're trying to avoid. That was probably the riskiest of all the choices remaining.
I want to see Alpha Luna be very safe on that Zagara because there is a lot of different rotation possibilities with a Falstad, with a Brightwing, and she needs to have that creep spread out and needs to stay safe if it is Zagara who gets put into the bottom lane.
There's a lot of different ways this can go. You think about the Brightwing Bomb being a powerful asset, but then the responses that exist with Entangling Roots, with the Devouring Maw, both really good responses to that two-man fly-in. Jay, how?
Yeah, I think one of the things that I look at here is when you look at the fact that you have double globals, the potential Nidus Network. This is a good map for Zagara. I don't think it's what you need, especially going into what Dread was talking about. You need those team fighting tools to be able to use, and I think Devouring Maul solves that. But I wouldn't be surprised if Nidus is one of those things to be able to get map control and stuff like that. It's kind of on the board, but again, I really go back to what Dread said, is that you need those tools to be able to engage during team fights and to be able to capitalize on moments, especially against somebody like Brightwing. So we'll see how that plays out once we get to those heroics.
Dread, you said you don't love the Brightwing, but who do you think got the better end of the draft?
I think please buff Arthas. I think that as long as they don't get one shot early on and that they're patient with their initiations, that they don't get overexcited and just decide to initiate in a mid-tier fight. With Li Ming's poke coming out, I think that'll be enough. Malfurion and Chen and Tyrael are all these weird hybrid self-sustain tanks, and a lot of it comes down to Alpha. As long as his positioning is safe, they should be able to pull out the W and don't fall too far behind in the early game.
Well, we are ready to begin game number 2. Take it away, Gillyweed and Jayhow.
Here we go. Let's see if Fnatic can bring the series back, carrying them on to game number 3, or if PBA will close this out and move on to the winners finals of this match.
Well, on the left side in blue is Fnatic. That's going to be Breeze on Murden, Quacknix on Falstad, Schwimpy on Vala, Smexy on Brightwing, and Wubby playing that bruiser-style off-tank role of ETC.
And you can call them the underdogs, but whether you think that or not, they're up 1-0 in this series. It's Please Buff Arthas with Alpha Luna playing Zagara, Baphomet on Chen, God Dog playing Li Ming, Skrull on Tyrael, and Zola playing Malfurion.
All right, first things first, what do you think of this Murden block choice at level 1? We look at auto attackers on the other side. Zagara, I mean, yeah, maybe. Chen, yeah, maybe. Tyrael, are those really that threatening? We see so much value out of that third win trait.
Yeah.
It's a little bit confusing to me, especially when we talk about the power that the temples can give you and to be able to step on and off that to be able to get that heal.
I don't know what to think of that, Jayhow. I would have thought that you would want to go for a third wind as well.
Well, talk about third wind. It looks like this bottom cannon is going to need a third wind as it's already down, but Fnatic. Breeze is jumping on in there, just trying to disrupt any bit of pressure. But look at this early pressure, and I can only talk about this bottom lane so much. We'll get a little bit more into it, but right now, PBA put the pressure on.
Something I had noticed from PBA is when they do have Alpha Luna on Zagara's solo laning, they will either be down with her or will make quick rotations constantly to help her out, maybe scaring away their opponents from wanting to get aggressive onto Zagara. And it's nice that they're not only helping her siege down structures, preparing for the second temple phase, but also helping her spread her creep out. But she might be too far forward. Breeze jumps in on her, a fast polymorph back. Malfurion trying to keep her alive. It's only Breeze left on her. Schwimpy comes in too, and Zagara will be the first blood.
I mean, think about what we just saw there. We saw Murden stay on top of Zagara. Malfurion heals are great, but the damage output that we saw from the support there that they had from Fnatic took him down. The heals, you could see, were trying to get there, but not quick enough. First blood of the game going over to Fnatic.
This might change up the decision-making for PBA, losing Zagara in the bottom lane. Now they've got Li Ming down there. Zagara's coming up to mid. Maybe not ideal for how they wanted this first temple phase to start.
And you can see Falstad, that's the power of the globals right there, Gilly. We heard that Brightwing phase shift coming in, and Falstad flew up at the same time. You knew you were going to get that polymorph the power side. They capitalized on another rotation, getting another kill there onto Chen. That does afford them the top temple, but this middle temple so far being channeled by PBA.
Now, there are a few shots taken out here from Fnatic, and they're starting to get antsy, wanting to get back onto the temple to delay the shots long enough that once ETC gets top, he can come down and they can maybe take a team fight. Now, Skrull is pretty far up there and takes massive amounts of damage, and that's what I was talking about. Until he starts to build up his shielding a bit more, get stronger, he needs to be careful about how much damage free damage he gives as Tyrael.
Yeah, I mean, you made that point before, and we saw it just there. Sometimes you go a little bit too far and you don't have that escape mechanism that you have when you go in using that Eldritch runs. But giving up the rest of those shots, we saw Falstad rotate to the bottom to continue some of that smoking a little bit, soaking, and you can see a little bit of an invade here from Fnatic. They're looking to disrupt these rotations.
Maybe seeing if they can steal away or stop at least PBA from getting the Giants, while Fnatic are also pushing in the bottom. Breeze, fantastic job stopping rotations coming in, but still, finally, PBA get into the lane, and Fnatic needs to disengage before they take too much damage.
Alpha Luna is going to have nightmares of Breeze if this continues on, having Murden on you non-stop. But Gilly, I want to talk about this bottom lane, but in particular, Breeze continuing to go over and harass them. That bottom lane, the second temple phase, is going to be that bottom temple, so there's a large priority on this bottom lane to be able to take that well, or to have enough structure damage that those early shots take out that well and give you a huge advantage on that bottom lane.
PBA are the first to get their Giants, and no setup to do so from Fnatic. They're playing the patient game, trying to deal with the Giants from PBA before they can get their own. Just making sure that they are the ones who can clear these out fast and don't take further structure damage from that early push that PBA had.
Yeah, they are definitely putting it on so far. Not a huge amount of damage coming out. We see a little bit of a hesitation from Li Ming to commit too much. Doesn't want to be dove upon as we see that double warrior comp, but Breeze in particular putting so much pressure on PBA.
Baphomet is pretty far forward in the top lane too, and Quacknix is going back. There is a possibility that somebody could try to come in and help Wubby out and taking out this Chen. But Baphomet's moving further back, Skrull pushing in mid lane, and the siege is everywhere from PBA. But with the Giants down now, Fnatic don't have to worry as much about this bottom lane, as long as they keep somebody back from letting Alpha Luna get some free siege.
The thing about this is if Fnatic has a slow rotation to the bottom, because we see they're already prioritizing that top left bruiser camp, obviously that gets good value. You have double global to be able to join that. But if they give up early shots, those early shots will take down the well on their side because of the structure damage already done by PBA. But PBA prioritizing a camp of their own, you got to imagine that this right now is a blessing for Fnatic as they've already started channeling.
Yeah, PBA are pretty late to get these bruisers, and maybe it's because they know that they've taken enough of the structural damage down in bot that they don't have to be so fast as long as they get some of this shrine. Baphomet jumping in, God Dog is there too. PBA trying to funnel in to help out with the team. Falstad's still in the top, wants to make sure that his bruisers are the ones that are doing damage. And we've got to pause in the game so we can talk a little bit more about what's set up so far, as well as any interesting talents maybe that we see.
Yeah, I mean, that right there is a moment to where it seems to be, briefly there, where it seems to be, you know, the fact that PBA finally rotated down, they're able to get some of those shots down, and that's one of the biggest things is you can get a little bit of an advantage out of that, and so we'll take a look at this a little bit more when we do come back. But with Baphomet on that point right now, you got to think that that rotation from Falstad is going to be crucial to this team fight. Both of these teams getting closer to level 10, and these temple shots are going to be huge for both of these teams.
Well, we're back in the game. We'll see if that Falstad comes in fast. Baphomet jumping onto Wubby as ETC can get chunked down pretty far, narrowly dodging that orb, but maybe feeling the breeze off of it. Falstad has almost taken out the top bruisers and can feel more comfortable at any time now if he wants to fly down, but looks like Fnatic are willing to give up the rest of the shrine. They have taken what they can. They want to allow Falstad to get a fort. They've said, we're gonna still get a fort. So it's a fort for fort situation. We're ahead in the experience. PBA are looking for the aggression. They blow up right wing.
And that is some of the aggression you can ward yourself with Tyrael as he dives right in. But the follow-up combination from Li Ming securing that kill puts the advantage in their favor, takes another camp, but level 10 has been picked up by Fnatic.
10 is here, no Emerald win, so Fnatic are relying on Mighty Gust for that disengage. Still, Breeze is questioning, or Wubby is questioning what he's going to get for his heroic ability, and I like that ETCs can do this.
Yeah, I mean, you can wait on it. The main reason is you wait on the heroics of Li Ming and potentially Zagara. Wave of Force is kind of be that counter, but they went ahead and locked it in anyways. It is going to be stage dive, no need to even play with it, but that does allow Li Ming to pick up Disintegrate as opposed to that Wave of Force.
And Disintegrate's going to help Li Ming be able to reach that back line behind Muradin, behind ETC, with all of the damage that she'd like to be putting on more tasty targets like Bala and Falstad. Stage dive has come in, instant entangling roots too. Wubby and Breeze separated from Fnatic, and Scroll doing what he can to zone everybody else away. Cleanse has to be used. Scroll in trouble. Devouring Mai, it's nobody. Tranquility, not enough to keep Tyrael alive. The jump back in, Bala blown up. Resets are here. Smexy almost down. Disintegrate, not quite enough to get that Brightwing kill. It's a 1-for-1.
That blink heal away by Smexy saved his life at the last moment, but that gives PBA the power to push in once again, trying to wrest control away from Fnatic as they take down another fort, but that could have been a lot worse for either of those teams. A little bit of a sloppy play as that stage dive was greeted by some roots there by Malfurion.
Yeah, it was quick thinking on Malfurion's part, so great job by Zola. And the fireworks on Sky Temple are starting. Nothing so great yet, so one-sided that anybody can be okay with going for a boss. And we have seen Please Buff Arthas in the past do some things like stealing bosses.
They've got Chen in their sights.
This is all 5 members coming in. The power of their globals. Baphomet polymorphed. No chance of Chen getting out. And such a difficult moment for PBA as the temples are starting.
You know, I mean, that's not terrible in the sense that you look at the temples. One's on the very top, one's on the bottom. But take a look at this. With stage dive, that is another global. They have 3 now. So they're going to send the rest of the members down to contest this bottom temple. And if trouble comes up, you have ETC that can get down there in a heartbeat.
Yeah, they're actually waiting out on that top temple. Now ETC will head up to it. Scroll hanging on to the bottom until Chen can get back. All of PBA making sure that they're helping to take down so Scroll doesn't get too much damage from these Guardians. And both are playing the 13 game. They want that advantage so that they can get aggressive again.
Well, speaking of aggressive, we see the rotation up by PBA. Nice barrel roll over by Quacknix, able to dodge that orb. But look who's caught in there. Breeze is very low. Nice Mighty Gust to be able to save him in what could have been a tough situation as Breeze was in all kinds of trouble.
The plays by Quacknix there, saving himself, saving his team. And PBA say, okay, that's fine, you can get away. I like that they are seeing that Fnatic, by the way, are about to get 13, and they're like, no, let's just go for the fight really fast. Let's see if we can get the catch, and move very fast to that. Not getting it, they instead steal the Giants.
Yeah, that Chen death wasn't terrible, but take a look at this. The boss has started.
Gust
this
is
should
down.
be sniffed out. Gust is down 25 seconds, but this boss is going to go down before then. In comes Breeze. You can see they do have vision on because of that creep, and the potential is rising, but Gilly, I don't think they want to have any of this as they realize it's been sniffed out.
No 13 yet, too. It was a risk, but they wanted to see if they could just get away with it. And unlike X Team, Fnatic sniffed that out and stopped them from it.
Well, you can see the priority on the camps continues to go full in. And Fnatic trying to clear some of that creep on the bottom while we see PBA up at the top, just trying to mitigate that wave that's been pushing, get a camp of their own, and clear what's been knocking on that top lane.
Looking at 13, Smexy often gets Ice Block for Brightwing, but not feeling that he can do so because of the ability damage that PBA is putting out. They're going to use Shield Dust instead to take away some of the ability damage that Li Ming's been throwing out. But Malfurion does have an ice box too, so that will help him. He can drop Tranquility and then throw that out if he's in trouble.
Ooh, that flank potential. Baphomet looking for somebody. Scroll posturing up right now. He's looking to get anybody he can as he uses the Eldruins to come in. There's the flying kick, but the dwarf toss out by Breeze. Man, you talk about PBA. They are looking to make something happen right now.
Playing some leapfrog.
Yeah, a little bit. You got a flying kick, you got a dwarf toss, you got a barrel roll. Who wants to hop over who right now?
But PBA is finding strength in numbers, moving around as 5. Meanwhile, Fnatic is soaking always somewhere. Wubby in top or Brightwing in bottom. Somebody is split soaking. And that has, because PBA has not found the kills that they constantly have been looking for in separating, they are losing the experience game.
Well, we have 25 seconds before the next temple. In comes the double global. I think Schweppy might have already been there, but they are definitely looking to fight. This is a single temple phase, and we talked about this area in particular. There is going to be a huge team fight, and you can see it's already started.
It's a rough place to start, having to use cleanse, scroll being low. Gust is out though, and that's a nice start at least for PBA.
Well, you can see Goddog and team up at the top harassing Wubby, who's just barely dodged that orb as he's taking a bit of damage, getting those heals from Smexy, but the temple has been activated, and you can see they are posturing up, looking for a fight, and they have to take this now because 16 is quickly approaching for Fnatic.
PB understand they want the fight. What do Fnatic do? Do they play this passive game again and just back off? It seems like that's what they want to do. They're going to give up this shrine, and they are behind structurally.
It's like they don't know how to start this fight. The engagement isn't there. They have double warrior, but they haven't looked for the engagement. Wubby flanking on the side, but he's taking so much damage that he can't commit. Breeze taking so much damage that he can't commit either. And this goes back to what Dreadnought was talking about. Having those heals there available are not where they need to be. As you can see, Tranquility already coming out, and that's just securing more of that temple.
But Solo was incredibly patient with that Tranquility, waiting and waiting until people got low to heal back up. It was a risk, but it paid off. Now Baphomet's in trouble. Cleanse used. Stage dive. Wubby has found an entrance, jumps in, roots immediately again there. Sanctification used, but Li Ming already down. PBA still want to try to take this fight. They know that Fnatic aren't quite 16. Scroll's getting low. If he dies, maybe he could get back in with Eldruin's might, but it's risky. It's a second kill, and the members of Fnatic are very healthy. As they start to get tankier, and as they take down Chin, it'll be harder and harder to get an early kill for Li Ming.
Gilly, that was a huge moment. They finally found the engagement that they needed. They got the kills, they got the fight that they wanted, and now they're rotating down for a boss. The fact that Tyrael and Chen aren't there, two of your huge, biggest boss contesters that you have, especially at Sanctification, nothing's on the board right now. And we saw somewhat of a salvageable situation for Fnatic to be able to pull that out, and look what they're doing with it.
Man, they used the Gust at the beginning of the fight and postured around long enough for Gust to be back up again. So 60 seconds of poking and prodding, making Tranquility be used, but in the end, it paid off for Fnatic in that they could get a few takedowns, move ahead, get the boss, even Giants to push along with the boss. We'll see what exactly they can get done with this boss, because like I said before, they are still down in structures.
Yeah, speaking of getting stuff done, I mean, they have a full level lead. They have 7 kills to 2, but Gilly, as you just talked about, the structure advantage seems to be over in favor of PBA because they've had temple control. And now we see a little bit of posturing, trying to get some value out of this boss to bring themselves back, extend their lead as it's now 2 full levels. They're really trying to put on the pressure. Are they going to succumb to the same mistakes they had in game number 1?
PBA has struggled to get 16. They will have Ma in 10 seconds, so maybe they can get in there, grab some people, but Fnatic aren't even going to give them the chance. They're going to back off. They know that it would be very risky. The boss had been taken down, and they would have to move through the walls, putting them in a potential place for PBA to catch some people out. Now they have 16. Maybe PBA can find a fight.
They are taking 0 chances there where they would have in game number 1. And this is something that we see out of Fnatic. Sometimes they get these leads, but they don't want to give them away. The fear of dropping a game, especially the fact that they're already down 1-0, that's a huge, huge thing. And mentality-wise, that could work against you. And Gilly, with both temples here, generally you see a priority for the bottom because of that boss there. The boss being picked up, this could be an even trade.
This is cool, though, because the bot keep is open, and there's not globals for PBA. So Fnatic is going to push in with the minion wave along with the temple and will secure this keep easily.
That's really good shot calling right there.
That was a great move.
It forces the back there, and look at that. We now have ETC up at the top. If we have some globals available between Brightwing and Falstad, there's the power slide in. In comes Smexy, and all of a sudden there's Eldruins. He's going to dive away. Nice juke there. But this is the power of the global, and they're now controlling both these temples.
Fantastic shot calling from Fnatic in this late game Sky Temple, showing why it is one of their best battlegrounds to be on. They picked it. They feel much more comfortable here, at least it seems, than Infernal Shrines. Wubby going in. Jumps. Oh, that's so many things used for that. Oh, no.
Oh, my goodness.
Oh, my.
At the last moment, you dive out of the Devouring Maw? The only way you can stop that is some form of CC, and he says, no, I am Superman and I am out of here.
He dove away from the abyss. PBA are angry about that. Grabbing bruisers, trying to push this top in. They want to get control back. They have done it before. They did it in the last game, but it was a little bit different. Once they started to get control in the mid game, they never really gave it back, and this time Fnatic's being much more cautious about where they take fights.
I'm blown away by that. I mean, that couldn't have happened a split second later. Very nicely done, but we see a 2-level lead by Fnatic. They've put the pressure on, they've gotten a keep, and that is huge, huge value. That opens up a win condition. When that boss comes back up, they can fight for that, and then that will push directly to the core. So that's a threat the rest of the game. You'll have catapults, but 2-level lead for Fnatic in complete control right now.
I can't stop thinking about that stage dive. Oh, 20 here for Fnatic. Storm Talons ready. Epic Mount, Farflight Quiver. The jump in these globals have been difficult for PBA to say the least, but they got through a few of them without losing the level 20 game. They know any missteps from this point on is game.
Now they are posturing up, trying to threaten this keep. They know that they have talent tier advantage. We just saw Wubby use his Bolt of the Storm, so he's not going to have that same type of escape, but he does still have that stage dive, and after what we've seen, I can't imagine if he wouldn't be able to get out. But they are threatening this keep before the next temple phase, and they're just keeping PBA from doing any type of soaking, getting any type of map control. This is great right now for Fnatic.
It's great as long as they don't group up and get hit by a money maw.
Posturing up right now. Bree is looking for anybody. No, let's just Mighty Gust him away and take control. Oh, they found Li Ming on the backside, separating him from his team. We do see the Sanctification has been used, but stage dive on the backside.
Stage dive in the back. Breeze and Wubby trying to deal massive damage in the back line, but Schwimpy is in trouble, trying to strafe to safety, staying alive from the support of Smexy, staying strong. This is the 20 to 18. The Storm Shield was very good, but still 2 down for 1. The fight continues. Massive misplays. They might have been the wrong spot. PBA are taking this fight down 20 tier talent. A 4-man wipe for one hero.
They fought that down 19 to 20 in that fight. They were able to get that. Look at this. The boss has 5 seconds before it comes up. Wubby has also found himself in all kinds of trouble. Squirrel going for the flank. There's the Devouring Maw. It will secure the kill. We now have a full team wipe. Although Wubby had Bolt up, and he is. I take that back. I guess he had Bolt. But they're just going to go in. They're going to get a keep right now, Gilly, and then they're going to go back and get everything that they want. Or are they going?
Oh, let's look at that again, because this was a fantastic level 19 to 20 fight. A lot came down to the Sanctification, and they're jumping in.
They are going, but look, they are posturing up. They're going for the core right now. Shield starting to go down. Just a few seconds left. Mighty Gust is available. The shields have gone down. They're very low. Wubby trying to take down anybody he can. Luna goes down. It's down to 60%. Stage dive is there. Falstad is up. Mighty Gust, there it comes. It keeps them away. And so far, it looks like a throw. Gilly, this is huge.
That is huge. Tyrael down. Li Ming gone. Malfurion has only just now spawned and gets to the boss point. Baphomet backing for his life, but I don't know what they can do. There's a keep already down on PBA's side, and Fnatic are marching across the map.
They're marching across the map. The boss is there. Oh, they're going to fake it. Malfurion and Chen. Is it going to be enough? 46%. The shields have come back. Wubby has hurt. They're going in for the kill. In comes the Panda Pals. They are doing damage. 40% isn't going to be enough. Look at the members of Fnatic. They are fighting furiously, defending right now, and they are warding it off. 32%. Zola not going to be able to secure it. This is crazy right now.
He is staying alive for a very long time, though, man. Malfurion for the win. Schwimpy is on the core. Smexy can phase shift in and has done so. Catapult as well. Zagara is up. She's got Maw. Can she catch them both?
They're going to try to. They need to try and split just a little bit. They get away. They do have a lot to them, and this looks like it's going to be game as Quacknix has joined the party in one of the most dramatic endings. Game number 2 going over to Fnatic. That was unbelievable.
That was a mess. What a crazy end to that game, but Fnatic ties it up. They tie it up. And we go to game number 3.
You know, take me back to that stage dive out of Devouring Maw, and after that, it was nothing but fireworks after that.
Wubby, absolute MVP of that game. Stage diving out of Maw, bolting as soon as he came out of Maw again. Everything thrown out.
If he went down there, that was game.
Yeah.
He was able to single-handedly hold him off for as long as he could. He had reinforcements that came back. I mean,
he got a kill.
Those 2 moments go down in Wubby godlike history.
Yeah.
Those 2 moments, that was so impressive.
A truly remarkable game. I mean, there's nothing like a roller coaster in Heroes of the Storm where it goes back and forth, left and right, up and down, because I thought PBA had it there. That was intense.
Yeah, they had a lot going for them throughout the entire match. One thing I did find very interesting is the fact that Chen opted into going Q build to be able to get the chase onto his opponents, when I felt like a lot of their composition would thrive on just, you know, playing the Donkey Kong barrels everywhere, throwing them out as best as you possibly can, and then getting the poke down, and then deciding to take the team fight whenever they need to. And a lot of this game came down to them trying to get the poke out, everything else. They burn a lot of cooldowns, and then whenever that happened, Fnatic would look to try and get the engage. It was a heck of a match. I would put it as throughout the entire game, but it was pretty neat.
Well, Dread, take us through some of those best moments.
The best moment is, without a doubt, is going to be this team fight on the bottom half of the map. And so keep in mind, we have Fnatic has level 20, and Fnatic catches out God Dog that he's going to be isolated, and they have already gusted away the entire team because they thought they could get a pick. But he's going to be able to abuse the Calamity and get the distance around his opponents, dodge his Storm Bolt, and everybody's going to move in to take the fight. And as I said before, they were waiting for Please Buff Arthas to burn cooldowns, and then they initiate. But the problem is they just use their own one of their massive disengages, and now that they're trying to get the pick, everyone is coming to save them. So they have to fight into, for the first time this game, they have to fight into their cooldowns. And this is how it goes. Even with 20 advantage, everyone here stacking on top of one another. The damage, everybody's completely split. If this was on even footing, this fight would be very, very different. And you can see the Malfurion being able to get the ice block, keep himself alive. Everybody is on to Schwimpy. And right here, we see that everybody is just in sheer panic, trying to survive whatever they possibly can. And Zola is dying into the back line, and Baphomet is struggling to be able to confirm the kill. But Smexy will end up running away, end up going down as well. Getting a reset is going to allow Li Ming to just keep up his team. And that was the first time we ever saw a team fight where both teams had their massive cooldowns. And I guess if Please Buff Arthas had gotten the upper hand in the early half of that game, I feel like it would have been far different the other way around.
That was right after the fly that I liked from Quacknix.
Yeah.
Where he did the gust and then just boop, flew
like
right over the bridge. Just didn't want to be on the death bridge, okay?
Yeah.
You don't want to be on it.
Well, a lot of crazy moments. ETC escaping the clutches of that Maw. Probably my favorite moment just because of how close that was. I mean, a millisecond later, and he was going under.
It should be noted that Maw was used after the animation for stage dive. It is cool. It is cool, but it should be noted that he sent that out knowing it can't hit. He physically knew it could not hit. So I mean, I agree it's pretty nifty, but I can't help but like reiterate that train of thought that like that was a massive misplay on the side of Lunar. He burnt that cooldown. It's cool the fact that Wubby got out and he had a lot of flashy plays that game, but I don't think I would consider that one. I feel like I don't know. It's just it's something. It's been bothering me that it is. He sees the animation. I watched it 3 times to double check. Like you see the animation of stage dive, and then we see the Maw come.
Well,
out.
then it was used on him again, right? And he had bolt.
Yeah.
So he just bolted the other way. Everybody was like, "Okay, here we go. We're gonna fight right on."
Yeah, that was a very good play.
Curtain on Wizard of Oz. Just don't do it.
Well, for the very first time in this tournament, we have a game at number 3. The teams tied up 1-1. We're gonna throw to a quick commercial break and get ready for game number 3.
Heroes of the Storm Fall Championship is sponsored in part by Intel, T-Mobile, NVIDIA, and Republic of Gamers.
Another round? Heroes of the Storm. Prepare for Heroes Brawl, the new game mode that breaks all the rules. Rated T for teen.
The Heroes of the Storm Fall Championship is sponsored in part by Intel, T-Mobile, NVIDIA, and Republic of Gamers.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back here to the Heroes of the Storm Fall Championship. We are going into our very first game, number 3 of this tournament. Fnatic, PBA, they look incredibly even, and you know what? We are ready for the draft, so let's just jump right on in.
This is shades of Summer Global Championship, GFE, PBA all over again. Guys, it's about to get real. It's about to get real scary because Garden of Terror, man.
I saw what you were doing and I wanted to stop it, but I didn't.
All right, well, nice and spooky here in Garden of Terror. Not as spooky as Towers of Doom, but Zeratul once again will be respected here on the side of Fnatic for that first ban.
Speak for yourself. This is more terrifying to me. But anyways, Zeratul ban is the ultimate respect ban. Every single major global championship has one hero that always comes out and terrifies people, and it's Zeratul.
Yeah.
And the fact that it's already made its way out this early and it's now a first ban hero just goes to show how strong this hero is and how scared people are of it.
Isn't this a trend for just about every global, though? Doesn't Zeratul always rise up in prominence?
Every single one.
And Tyrael, too.
And Avatar. Those three, it's crazy.
Fnatic won't this time be able to grab both of the warriors to try to warrior choke away Scroll as long as PBA responds in getting one of them.
you have to imagine that Muradin, who's going to be one of the most highly contested heroes, I feel would be a first pick potential here. I mean, you talk about what Skrull could do with it in game number 1. You talked about how powerful he is on a couple of warriors in particular. But Muradin, top tier warrior, top tier playmaker on that warrior role, and Breeze does amazing on it.
But it's a big battleground, and ETC gives you a global. Globals worked out for Fnatic in the last game. It got a little hairy, but they were making a lot of plays and picks with them.
Well, there it is.
ETC as the pickup for Fnatic, not surprising. So PBA, I would like to see them obviously prioritization onto the Muradin, get them a little more comfort than we saw in the last game. And then from that point on, it does seem that PBA's draft is too comfort-centric, I feel like, in a lot of situations with the high tier prioritization into the last game. But hopefully we maybe see that adjustment here as we move into game 3. Everything is, it feels like everything's on the line. They do have a secondary chance no matter what team ends up winning or losing after this point.
Jayha, where do you think the Lost Vikings sit in this matchup between these two teams?
I don't think they sit anywhere for Fnatic. I don't ever see them run it.
Yeah.
I mean, I've looked and I've looked. I don't have as much draft data as maybe Gilly does on PBA, but I don't know if it really sits well for either of these teams. You know, heroes that will continue to sit well, I think, for Fnatic are Falstad and Brightwing. I think that they'll either pick up one or both, and Vala will be another highly contested hero. I think those are those 3 heroes that right now are Fnatic's comfort picks and the ones that they feel are their strongest. So look for them to prioritize those. PBA is a whole different animal though.
What if PBA got Malfurion? It is Zola's favorite and then banned.
Ooh.
Never mind. I like the steal from Falstad too. They don't want to get wrecked with a ton of globals again.
And it is one of the better maps for Falstad, just because you can see the little camps when it comes to the map objective spawning, and when they're actually dead, you can see them dying, so you know where your opponents are. It allows you to make really cheeky plays with flight into hiding in the fog of war and getting a pick onto a target.
However, in that last game when Quacknix and Fnatic was playing Falstad, he really wasn't able to put out that much damage. Yes, those globals worked out very well, especially for that rotation onto top, but in the end, when it comes to a ranged assassin, he's definitely on the lighter end for the damage output.
He is, but he affords so much more. The global there, we saw him got a couple of picks. Again, he struggles in team fights. In 5-on-5 team fights, I think Falstad struggles right now, especially after the recent nerfs. But we'll look at some of the draft a little bit more because Tychus and Malfurion, 2 very meta heroes right now, taking Tychus away from PBA. That could be leading into a possible double warrior. But Gilly, one of the heroes that we haven't seen, I don't think in a single game yet, but one that is highly prioritized by both teams is Thrall. Like, where is Thrall?
I don't know. After the second bans, if he's going to come in, like I said, we have draft data on both of the teams on current patch, but it was still a while ago from Nexus Games, a while ago, a few weeks from the Taiwanese regional. It's possible that the teams have felt a change in the wins, if you will, like we saw Baphomet on Chen. Although I feel like if they need a strong heroic to start an engagement, Chin wasn't working out for them as well as, say, Sunder would.
Interesting that the Leeming is going to be banned out on the side of PBA. They are in need of large damage dealers, and with Tychus already picked up, I think that means that they're going to be looking to try and deny the follow-up. TLV
Lost
is
Vikings
removed there for Fnatic. I'm not surprised. Fnatic is interesting when it comes to their hero pools. Some of them seem to be able to expand out to weird things like the Lost Vikings, and other times it seems like overly constricted with players like Quacknix. But now with that rotation, PBA, I think denying the Vala would be really good for them. They just need to make sure that they get a solid front line. But I mean, Chen is still up. Granted, I wasn't impressed with the Chen play last game. I still think he is going to be, much like Alarak, one of the most terrifying heroes in this tournament.
I love the Vala pickup here. You said it best, that denial from them, plus it's a really strong hero. They're going to go into Ariel, and we saw how well that worked in game number 1. There was no real need for a cleanse because you just kind of put that Crystal Aegis down. But Dredd, I want to go back to what you just talked about with Alarak. I mean, is it surprising to you that we haven't seen either of these teams even contested?
I feel like maybe for on the side of PBA, but again, their data is very limited. But Fnatic, if there was going to be an Alarak, I feel like a lot of it would come down to Wubby, and when he is on those mechanically intensive melee assassins, to be blunt, he usually fails. In my opinion, he isn't too impressive. Like, he could pull out a W, but a lot of the times his influence on a team fight is usually not that positive. Zeratil's a prime example for me when it comes to him, but though his Thrall seems to be very outstanding.
Well, one of the more interesting things when we talked to Please Buff Arthas, we asked them, what they thought of the changing meta. And they brought up new heroes. And their exact answer to us was that they wait for other regions, specifically Korea, to figure out how to use that hero before they try it. And I thought that was very surprising.
Weird.
It was one of their answers in the sense that they're going to let somebody else figure out the best way to use that hero before they get on it. So I think that's why PBA is a little bit more reserved towards Alarak, even though he has been out a while.
All you gotta do is watch Rich's stream.
Well, we do have Chen locked in here for Fnatic, so that's going to give them a very powerful front line. Looks like they could use some more for that range DPS and poke. Sergeant Hammer.
I like it. Always enjoy the Hammer compositions. They do have a reasonable amount of peel to be able to help her. Her damage output is just ridiculous. Her potential to just threat on this map specifically, like split pushing a 1-4 with the Garnet Terror on the upper half of the map and Hammer putting on the bottom. Everything about her is pretty neat, so I really do enjoy that. I have been surprised at how little priority we've seen on her. Granted, we've only played maps where she doesn't necessarily thrive, so I like that choice. Now PBA needs to make the answer. Are they going to try and take a pick that is going to try and force the fight into Hammer, or is it going to be the one that plays a bit more patient?
But think about that, Dread. I mean, they have Ball of Falstad. I mean, it almost, but Chen was denied from them. If Thrall isn't the pick here, then what is it? I mean, you have to have some type of engagement. You just can't let Hammer siege up against that composition, right?
I like Thrall.
Yeah, I think I'm with Gilly here. This is when Thrall needs to come back in because...
Whoa! Maybe they have figured it out.
Alarak says, come here, Hammer. Hang out with our team for a bit.
Hammer is quite a ways back, though.
Yeah, he's going to have to pick out when he wants to throw out telekinesis. It might be better to look for Quacknix to be out.
I love the chokes here and the potential for all that.
One use of the Alarak in this matchup into the Sergeant Hammer is, until you get to the later half, that I enjoy is when you start the fight, if ETC power slides in to try and start out the team fight, rather than worrying about the kill potential on Hammer, is you can knock her away out of range. You can just legitimately just push her out to where she can't do anything. She has to dismount and then come back in, and you buy time for your team to maybe get the kill potential onto the front line. But we have seen the Alarak come out from those who we know could play it, for instance, Rich, and it was impressive and dominating. And the ones that we didn't know if they could and we questioned, and then the pick ended up coming out, it wasn't very impressive. And I hope Please Buff Arthas is not going to be on that latter half of that.
You're talking about Ariel knocking Hammer away with the Detainment Strike?
Or telekinesis.
Oh yeah, because Ariel could throw it, and then he could telekinesis ETC even further in.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you can use it on the front line, or you could just like get close enough to be able to, hit a Q on somebody in melee and just be like, hey, we don't want to deal with Hammer.
My favorite part about this conversation is that Alarak can do a lot. Like, I mean, the threat of Alarak and Detainment Strike. I mean, we're talking about infinite amount of plays that hero can make, and I think it's exciting the fact that he's picked up at the latter end of the draft, and the threat is very, very real. We talked about they wait for other people to figure out. Maybe they were watching Rich's stream, because we're about to find out. Best of 3, game number 3. I'm excited for this.
Another thing I really like about Alarak on this map is, like, you think about both of his heroics. We don't see a lot of deadly charge, but the way that the map is laid out, if you wanted to invade, say, on one of the Garden Terrors in the center of the map, he can go through those walls with deadly charge, but also deadly strike, another incredibly powerful option to burst down your opponents.
Yeah, this entire draft, man, is really, really interesting to take note of some of the habits that are kind of forming between these teams.
Dread, give me some predictions. Who do you think won this draft? Who do you think will take this series?
Fnatic, I think, will pull away the W. I think their comp is more straightforward, and like I said, when we see players that we don't know if they can play the Alarak play them, usually comes out as a pretty big flop. So I don't know if that's going to be the case here, but I think it'll be enough to make it to where Fnatic gets a win.
Gillyweed.
I think Fnatic have enough protection for Hammer and for Tychus, and I believe they have a lot of comfort picks there too. So I think even though it's PBA's map, Fnatic's going to take it.
J-Hal.
I believe in the power of Baphomet. I imagine he's going to be on Alarak, and I can't believe I'm saying it, but I think PBA is going to take this.
My money's on Alarak. Let's find out. Game number 3 is ready to rock and roll. Take it away, Gillyweed and J-Hal.
All right, Gilly, game number 3 between Fnatic and Please Buff Arthas. I think not a lot of people probably expected us to be here, but here we are, and it is up in the air. And on the left side, we are going to have Fnatic, and that is going to be Breeze on ETC. Quacknix on Tychus, Schwimpy going to be on Hammer, Smexy on Malfurion, and Wubby on Chen.
And in the red, please buff Arthas with Alpha Luna playing Vala, Baphomet on Alarak, Goddog playing Falstad, Scroll on Murden, and Aria will be played by Zola. J-Hel, I did think we would be at this point, and I'll tell you why. Two things. First of all, I had a lot of faith in PBA here in this match. Second of all, you are my good luck charm because every match I cast with you is always amazing.
Didn't you just predict Fnatic?
I did.
Well, one of us has faith in PBA.
Okay.
Well,
Shots fired very early in this game.
Well, we see an early party push attempt there. Nobody rotating through, kind of both teams sniffing each other out. Rotation back towards the middle. Let's get the map underway. Now, we don't see both teams clashing in the middle because I don't think either team is really going to excel there. And the fact that you have Alarak on the other side, Shen and ETC, look at that detainment strike. Putting out some damage as the team just assaults Breeze.
He's been good with those. I think Zola is really happy to have Ariel back. They've got Alpha Luna too, who can be the nice hero to constantly give hope. It'll be up to him to maintain the hatred stacks too, and maybe scroll just to zone for him so he can be better, but Goddog's in trouble. That'll be first blood with a grenade.
That grenade goes in there, and boom goes the dynamite. Just kidding.
It's like I'm casting with Babel again. I miss my friend Babel.
Well, this is an interesting matchup and one that we have seen a little bit of mixed results. Somebody tells me 1 minute that they see Alarak winning lanes, and the next minute you see that when it's against the Chen, Chen wins the lane, and then I hear vice versa. So this will be something to keep an eye on. Yes, it's not the most exciting lane when you have these 1v1 heroes with no real threat of kill potential, but that actually is a very crucial moment.
Right. Alarak has multiple ways of stopping Chen from drinking his brew. He can silence, he can pull in with telekinesis. PBA went for their safe seed camp first, and this is putting them in danger at their own, going for the aggressive one. Meanwhile, these entangling roots from Smexy, very effective. Grabs Scroll, but he'll make it out of the snag.
How about that grenade that placed him right into that? We see awesome team coordination so far from Fnatic. It's very early on. Now, this map in particular sometimes has a little bit of a slow start unless we contest over these garden tears. Nice face melt there. But the Stormbolt comes in. There's the Alarak combo. The roots are going to be able to keep him alive and keep him from even further danger, but plays are being made already.
Smexy with Elun's Grace will be able to provide those roots with somewhat comfort now, getting increased range on his basic abilities. Seed phase still here. It's nighttime. Nobody wanting to make the first move at one of these big garden terrors. It does lock you down from some time, and Alarak gets taken out.
Yeah, that was in a lane I don't think we had eyes on it, but definitely one of those things. You know, the threat of the teams in particular early game, we don't see a ton of damage, but the amount of crowd control between ETC, Tychus, all the things that we've seen so far, no surprise there. Early aggression from Fnatic. This has been the story for 2 games in a row, though, Gilly.
I'm just concerned because PBA needs that early game. It goes back to our first game when I said that both of these teams, the early game is important to them. PBA didn't have the early game in any of these 3 games, or well, at least the other 2, but Fnatic made some very aggressive plays that let PBA come back. It wasn't the same in the last game, and PBA again are starting to get behind in the early game. They've got to be careful that they're not getting caught out like Alarak just did.
Yeah, those early picks, and you had to wonder with Wubby sitting there, they sat 2 seeds away from getting their Garden Terror. He doesn't want to risk any threat there, and not going to be able to pick up that first terror. But Schwimpy assaulting this bottom lane there in Sergeant Hammer.
Nobody in position yet, and Breeze is stopping Scroll from getting there. A lot of time that Sergeant Hammer freely was sieging. Now Schwimpy maybe will start to move away. Gets detainment struck away. Oh, Brazen. Thought that he was safe there.
I wondered why he didn't get out earlier, but he should know good and well the power of Falstad, because they used him in very much the same manner in the last map. But there we see Baphomet being caught out. Telekinesis able to get himself away. That is the self-telekinesis. And that is why Alarak can be a little bit slippery.
But you know, in the early game, even if you don't get a kill there, Baphomet's for sure going back. He has to go back, run all the way up to the top lane. So still a win for Fnatic, and this is another time that Baphomet has been caught in his lane. Just play safely and make sure that they don't get hit by rotations.
Oh, Quagnick, speaking of getting hit in rotations, we saw the flank using Fog of War to their advantage, allowed PBA to sneak on in. You could say now they are being the aggressor. They are putting damage on Smexy, got to be careful, but look up at the top. Wubby has company there, Baphomet and Goddog. What?
Woohoo!
Wait, okay. Somebody attack, please.
Each maybe thought that they had the kill.
You got this? No, you got this. Wait, what?
Wait, I got this. No, it's fine. I got telekinesis. Finally, Falstad says, or Goddog had enough of Baphomet getting caught, says, okay, I'm going to just help you with Chin, and then you can go do whatever you would like to be doing. And he'll stay up there in the lane, so that lets Baphomet rotate somewhere else, maybe to be with the rotation crew. So that they can try to get more of these picks.
These early rotations so far, I mean, it seemed like Fnatic really wanted to put some pressure on, and now PBA just turns it around. You talked about the need for them to be able to have control of the early to mid game, and it looked like they were doing just that. Now we see both teams prioritizing the camps right before the upcoming night phase, because we know that should be coming soon, and getting these camps to push lanes during that can lead to your advantage. Gilly, getting close to 10 now.
Very close. Both really neck and neck in experience, trying to get heroic abilities so they can make the plays around the night phase. Both are going to almost certainly get a terror, so it's not as much of a concern, even if for some reason a team didn't have 10, as long as they were setting up around one small camp, they could get their garden terror. But they would like to make sure that they are even getting more, maybe having a 2 terror phase, but if not, keeping up with their opponents with the seeds, so that future terror phases don't start to get out from under them.
I love the coordination from PBA right now. Alarak into the Detainment Strike. That's going to be potential for some huge damage as we get a little bit closer. The heroics are just about in for both teams, but at the same time, night phase in 20 seconds. Level 10 locked in for Fnatic. Tychus holding on for just a second to see what he's going to run with.
Quick stage dive, Breeze, or Wubby. Nope, Breeze this time is not messing around to have the global available to them. Twilight Dream now here. If Please Buff Arthas wants to go after Malfurion, they might bite off more than they can chew.
A little bit. We're going to see how this plays out. In comes Scroll. He's getting on Schweppy. Schweppy does have the cleanse. He does go down. Stage dive is in. Getting into that back line. Rain of Vengeance is down. But Alpha Luna is going to be the next to fall. 1-for-1 trade so far.
Crystal Aegis used as soon as Breeze goes in for the engage. Wubby is in the Panda Pals mode. And the Trill starts to work on the Terror, knowing that the rest of PBA will get away. A 1-for-1. Vala got separated from the rest of the team pretty hard. So PBA tried to say, okay, we're going to lose Vala. Let's try to make this time to get a second kill. It didn't work out for them, but at least they didn't lose more. They've gone up. The problem is, because the setup ended with Fnatic being on top of that Garden Terror, PBA is just now getting up to this Giant Terror. Baphomet's going back maybe to pick up their Terror, but this is a lot of seeds. There is still the potential for Fnatic to get a second.
Yeah, they could definitely go up there. And Gilly, you called it perfectly. That stage dive, separating that team, the placement of it, the threat was there. It's either we go and we try and defend and maybe fall back, but great call there. But as we can see, that Garden Terror is now going to be pressing. And as you talked about, the contention for this top one is in full effect. And Wubby not able to do too much about it.
Both Terrors coming out. Baphomet going to zone away the other Terror, Wubby in there. But this is going to be a full-on Terror versus Terror, team versus team fight over the remainder of these seeds.
Well, Wubby is getting absolutely assaulted in that Terror and getting taken down. But you can see the health of Baphomet. He still has a full minute left and plenty of health. Wubby is going to be dismounted from that before too long if he steps back out. So you have to think that this right now is working in favor of PBA.
They have done a good job of zoning away Fnatic, got the start, take the seeds, and prevent Fnatic from getting a second Terror, which is a terrible thing to deal with. No pun intended. Having the 2 Terrors up against you means your opponents can essentially waste the first one doing things like this, picking up the other seeds, and then there's a push with no Terror of your own to counter the siege.
Yeah, I love this early to mid game, and it might seem a little bit underwhelming to some people the way that this goes, but the strategy involved that you were just talking about, to be able to pick that up, deny the seeds and stuff like that, if that was going to be back-to-back, Garden Terrors for Fnatic, things could get out of control because that objective is so powerful. Once that plant goes down, you can see Baphomet getting a little bit of value out of what he's got there. But the strategy starts to wane a little bit, Gilly, as we get later into the game because those fights are going to be much more realistic around those.
The baits are real. Can Baphomet make Wubby dive over him? That's the key. No, there are too many people off the battleground, and Falstad was the only one soaking in the mid. We're going to try a different setup, see if maybe somebody will come in for these Giants. Fnatic knows. They know that somewhere a trap is being set for them. And look how cautious they are, yeah, especially Wubby.
There's nobody on the map. I mean, you can fool me once, maybe fool me twice. It's not going to happen here. Fnatic is way too experienced. And you can see they're setting up a little bit of a trap. At least Breeze is kind of being that anchor to get that vision, to keep an eye and see if anybody's passing through. Everybody kind of nearby if needed.
Yeah, I think it's so cool how they always set up those sieges from Sergeant Hammer with a warrior to stop anybody from getting in fast. Last time, Smexy decided that he was safe, but I think in future times, if we see them continue to do this, Smexy will know, okay, as soon as Breeze or Wubby, somebody sees somebody coming for me, I need to get right out.
Yeah, I think definitely a little bit more cautious this time around. There's Breeze. The positioning sometimes that you see of warrior players to hide in those shrubs, it gives you that vision just around to be able to see if somebody's pathing through. We've already seen a few flanks in particular, and Schwempy taking the long way home, realizes he wants to get out of there. They're not willing to give up anything, and you got to imagine the pressure of both of these teams. Neither team, you don't go out in here. You'll still go to the lower bracket, but nobody wants to lose this first set.
No, it puts you in a much better position because you could win the next match and then get out of the group without showing too much, which is great. But then even if not, you play only one match where your tournament life is on the line, and that's the Deciders match, instead of having to do that twice in a row, from the losers match to the Decider match.
Well, we see both teams prioritizing camps, looking to posture up. We are about at the next night phase, which means more seeds are going to be picked up. Another Garden Terror should reasonably be picked up by both teams. Will we see a similar strategy, or will we see somebody try and contest one? Experience, dead even. Structures, basically dead even. Gilly, right now, it feels like the tension in the air is extremely tense, and you got to wonder when something's going to break.
This is the time that PBA needs to prove that they are not tiltable, because a lot of the momentum is on Fnatic's side from that last win. But at the same time, I don't think that they were super happy. The game was really close. There's some talents I want to point out really fast. The barrel build, Donkey Kong build, as Dread's been calling it, for Chin, is going to provide a lot of slows for Fnatic on the backline. And then meanwhile, Blinding Flash, crucial this time for Ariel, because she can hopefully be able to blind both Tychus and Sergeant Hammer.
Well, there's the power slide, then comes the Rain of Vengeance, and the Roots are keeping Scroll there, but he does get the heal. Detainment strike onto Wubby, and he's going to try and go in there. There's the counter strike, actually misses, and you can see that right there had potential to blow up, and right now it looks like Fnatic posturing up to do more.
They are at least moving over to steal some of the camps. Breeze pushing back PBA constantly. Scroll with the dive, starting to jump on in. Roots on the back, hits God Dog. Here comes the stage dive. Immediate Aegis to counter. A lot of heroic abilities being used, and Gus must help PBA get away before they start losing anybody.
They do, and they're continuing to get in there as Wubby going in with those Panda Pals, trying to just harass anybody as Baphomet, but Wubby now finds himself in deep. The telekinesis is going to keep him in there, and down goes Wubby.
Very well timed, all those abilities, to make sure they can continue to damage the tanky Chin until he is taken out. That will be only one kill, but Fnatic were very fast to rotate in and get a lot of the small seed camps. So they have a terror, only a few more until PBA have their own. And this night phase is so crucial, because if you start to get behind your opponent in seeds, you start having to make risky plays around the big terrors. And that is when the problems start. I've seen a team, solely because they got a terror off of a small camp in the late game, run straight to core, while their opponents had to go get one of those giant terrors just to get enough seeds, and that was enough to win the game, so you must keep up.
I want to talk about the strategy here. Dread said this perfectly, so you can actually visually see on the minimap those camps. PBA saw that that bottom left small camp was taken. They instantly rotated down, contested that bottom tier, also stole a camp on the side of Fnatic, so they're using strategy to their advantage. You can see Wubby already grabbed a Garden Terror of his own. We see kind of a similar strategy, just trying to keep control of those seeds for the moment.
PBA going up to mid, clearing out that wave, picking up their terror, one terror left, and it is in the top. This entire time, Fnatic has had pressure on their structures because of mercenary camps. It's PBA again with great rotations and a focus on mercenaries who are able to constantly maintain something somewhere that is annoying their opponents.
Well, speaking of annoying, we see Baphomet coming in on that Garden Terror, just putting the plant down. The threat is there. You can't allow, when that plant is down, it amplifies the damage that the Garden Terror will do to structures. And as the game goes on, Gilly, it becomes tremendous amounts of damage that you just cannot give up. So you can see the priority to clear that out, but he's rotating back down. But heavily contested is this top Garden Terror.
Flower on the bottom means if Fnatic can pick up all these seeds, they can get another Terror. PBA are not coming in here fast enough maybe to stop. Now Scroll's in position that once this goes down, he'll steal a lot of them and do get, looks like enough to stop the Night phase. The Terrors brawling it out, duking it out with their plant slaps.
Well, they're going in. Wubby uses that blind kick to try and get to safety. Nice face melt by Breeze, but there is no fort for them to fall back to. Baphomet is going in, trying to get the polymorph on. He gets 2 members. In comes the heavy impact by Scroll.
I'm wondering if GodDog, when he'll feel the Gust is time. They have a Detainment Strike that pushes Wubby back. Handapel's here. That was the Gust. It didn't really do too much. The Twilight Dream annihilates PBA.
The Twilight Dream is real. Crystal Aegis is there. I believe the power slide should be there. Zola goes down, and now in a tough spot. Counter-Strike isn't going to do anything, and down goes Baphomet. 4 members down, and that was a huge moment for Fnatic.
Again, Smexy with the plays. It always...
I was waiting for that to come out, Gilly.
Yeah, it's always crazy to me to look back at where we started this year with Smexy to where he is now, because all of us talk about what an amazing player he is, and people used to see him as, oh, buddy! Oh!
You heard the whistle,
yeah, he
but
was
he
trying
missed
to
the
fly
dragon.
out. Oh, nice. Yeah, Smexy has been fantastic in his play and used to be considered one of maybe the weak points for Fnatic, now showing up.
He used to be one of the weak points, but between him and Breeze, it's almost a battle for who's #1 on that team, and they both make so many plays. They have a great supporting cast around them. Quagnix, Wubby, and Schwempy also great. And speaking of Schwempy, look at him sieged up as Hammer behind that wall and just assaulting that middle key.
Fnatic very close to 20. Breeze gets pulled in for the telekinesis combo, and the damage quick to come out to follow, and Baphomet pushed back. Fnatic almost are going to be up against Falstad being back. He has Gust. He could maybe try to make a fly-in for the aggressive Gust, but that hasn't really been PBA's style so far, and Fnatic get the keep in time and walk away.
Think about how brilliant it is to sit behind that wall. How do you get pulled through that wall? You don't. And so the positioning there was absolutely key. Now we have a keep down. It opens up a win condition for that Garden Terror, and they're going to have catapults pushing. They also got 20 in the meantime.
And it's a situation I was referencing before without even knowing. They will very quickly get a Terror and could march straight down that mid lane.
I mean, think about the threat of that, Gilly. You just talked about that. 90, you grab those 10 seeds and you instantly get that Garden Terror. It forces a response out of the other team.
And PBA need 50, 51 even, if I do my math correctly.
Well,
that means they'll have to take more time to get the seeds enough to have a Terror of their own.
well, Schwempy posturing up again. Not quite enough range there behind that wall. Look at GodDog. Look at the flank potential. He does have Mighty Gust available. I'm not sure if they want to commit, but he was there. It looks like he's going to go ahead and push back to the side and just try and take this head on. But that drill is doing work on that key.
Is ridiculous. Nobody stopping it, nobody throwing damage. So fearful of getting hit by these 20. It makes sense, right? They know that they're about to lose the game, but it's going to be a long time before they have 20. They need to either get it and get it fast, or make something happen, and potentially we might see them try to take a fight again. And we've got a Crystal Aegis, it's that time.
There it goes as the stage dive coming in, and down goes Alarak very quickly, and now this could be potentially game ending as Luna goes down, and you can see continuing to do work. Nice dive in, but the Mighty Gust was used, and this is a tough moment. Falstad, Mighty Gust down. Oriel and Muradin are all that's left to defend this core.
Falstad had just flown. And PBA, the rest were caught out. Schwempy sieging up on the core. Fnatic looking to end this series that they thought would be a much easier run to get to the winners finals of the group. Power slide on Zola, trying to get away. Roots underneath, Ariel taken out. Scroll, dwarf tossing just over. Sergeant Hammer will be the next to fall. And with that, Fnatic will secure their place. I hear the shouts. They're very happy. They've been able to bring down Please Buff Arthas in this amazing best-of-3 series.
An amazing series indeed, and on the next agenda for them is going to be a team called E-Star. Nothing to slouch at, and you got to think Fnatic, after this series, they've got to feel very confident in the fact to come back from adversity, but at the same time, they have been tested early, and is this the momentum that they talk about that can carry them throughout the day? They are a momentum-based team, and they just carried a whole heck of a lot of momentum through these last 2 games.
They're coming off of a win, but I'm interested to hear from them eventually how good they feel from that, because when we talked to them, they felt very confident in this matchup. I don't believe they ever expected it to go all the way to game number 3, and even for some of the games to be as close as they were the ones that they won.
Yeah, really close moments, but that last draft worked out brilliantly for them. We saw some big plays, whether it was the Twilight Dream or that drill plus the Sergeant Hammer to siege up that bottom lane. Some really inventive stuff that I haven't seen in at least a very long time.
Yeah, it was a really cool approach, abusing the fact that they have such a dominant sieging composition, and then manipulating the fact that they have level 20 and saying, hey, you want to try and take the fight? Well, we hope you want to try and take this. You even saw posturing from the fall set, questioning, should I Gus, should I not Gus? But in the end, he ended up not going with the Gus play. I mean,
We talked about Alarak can make or break a team fight. I don't think Alarak made near the plays that we thought we would see out of an Alarak player. I mean, that was tough.
Did a single Counter-Strike end up being impactful? I don't think so.
I would argue, I feel like I never saw like a telekinesis that felt like it was a combo that really came out on top. But I mean, we'll get right into our replays. We got some pretty cool ones coming up here. The very first one that we have for you guys is going to be the Fnatic game-winning team fight here. It's very interesting the fact that, okay, well, I mean, it's quite apparent. Alarak's gotten caught out, drawn way too many resources. This Aegis is going to gain very little value when it comes to the damage. Everybody gets out. Twilight Dream comes into play, silencing a majority of the targets, and then a really good stage dive to help with the team, confirm a kill. They're going to be able to get onto the next kill target, Vala, and it's really well done overall. And they end up just moving in, again, abusing that they have a siege composition. 2 kills normally, that's not lethal in most situations, but because you have a Sergeant Hammer, you have that laser, I mean, you can pretty much take it off 1 kill if you have the defensive comp enough. But we have another replay, and this one is not something we normally do. I'm going to pause it first. So we have a losing team, but I'm highlighting one player who I think played out of his mind and statistically stands out for this team, and this is Zola. So he is against a sieging composition, and he's Ariel. Watch how this kid plays. Everywhere. He is setting up plays for his team. Starting out for level 1. Perfect gank on the bottom half of the map. He's not done. He's going to be moving on to the next part of the map. All right, Hammer, you want to siege up, stunned against the walls, priming another kill for his team. And he's doing this everywhere he can. Hammer, look at Malfurion. He was going for a Twilight Dream on everyone. He says, nope, not today. He's going to be able to deny that. And this kid just, it was amazing to see that he plays this efficiently from behind, priming his team everywhere that you can. Even this last one is one of my favorites. He does it off Tychus drill. He's willing to stun the Chen. And I mean, honestly, he's playing perfectly here. And if his team got the follow-up, Chen doesn't live here. He ends up getting the barrel, but it's just Zola was an absolute monster that entire game. And, you know, people are like, you know, oh, where are the playmakers on supports? That kid, their team would have gotten destroyed if he was not prepping them with that strike. It was every time they got in a fight, you were like, he's going to outplay his opponents.
Really, really well played. And we actually do have an interview with one of the players. Take it away, Anna.
I want to go all the way back to the first game because we've had 3 games, which thank you for that, a 3-game series. We loved it. But back to that first game, the casters were talking about how PBA was untiltable. And even Jake said it was the untiltable versus the tilt-a-whirls. But then you guys proved coming back in this 3-game series that maybe you weren't so tilted after all. Tell us about the emotional state of your team through this series.
I mean, it's as you say, like we're always pretty like emotional, and we can, I wouldn't say we get easily tilted, but like we have to really be careful, and like, yeah, everybody just have to keep hyping everybody up and make sure that nobody is actually tilting, because I mean, that will be our defeat for sure.
How were you able to do that this time?
I mean, it's the normal, you just try to hype everybody up, but yeah, I mean, it's more of like nobody will straight up tilt, like when the next game starts, of course everybody has reset, but it's still like, you can see on the faces and stuff like that. So it's just up to everybody to like drop it and just really focus next. But of course, everybody has to help and say like, come on, it doesn't matter, just focus on next one, blah, 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 blah.
Well, you got us pretty emotional, especially in that game too. The casters even said, our heads are spinning, what just happened there? In your brief play-by-play, what happened in that second game and what allowed you to come out on top?
I mean, So our comp versus their comp, like in general, I think like it's something we play quite a lot. So it's like, yeah, we know that if we play good with it, we will probably win like fairly convincingly. I'm not saying that was the case here, but then they pick like really strong laners and stuff like that. So we just have to watch out for early game, make sure they don't snowball us, and then yeah, throughout mid-late game, we are confident that we will win the team fights.
Awesome. Well, unfortunately, I would love to pick your brain about this more, but we have to let you go because your next match is going to be versus E-Star. Just really quick, how are you feeling about that match?
I'm feeling confident. I mean, even though this didn't look like fantastic from our side, I'm feeling confident. And I think everybody, like we know we need to step it up a little bit, but if we do so and we get the drafts we want, we're going to be fine.
Well, I'm excited to see it, and I know you at home are too, so we'll be right back with that match after this.